Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome to Byju's Exam Prep IAS. This is Sham Kagud here. Now, before I start the discussion, if there is no issue with the sound, can you please give me a thumbs up? Do let me know that I'm audible so that we can begin the discussion. Okay, done. Thanks a lot. So, yesterday we have discussed the concept of, we started with the concept of employment, correct? We started with the concept of employment. Now, what is this idea of employment? What we have discussed? First and foremost, we discussed how do you define who is employed, who is unemployed, right? How do we divide the whole population, etc. So, point number one, we divide the whole population into one, labor force. Second one is non-workers, right? That is a labor force again is further divided into the population which is willing to work, gets work. That is the working population, employed population. And second, right, the labor force will also consist of the unemployed population. That is the population which is willing to work but doesn't get work. And because they're not getting the work, automatically the payment, right, the income part, salary part will also be not there. So one is employed, and the second one is unemployed, and the third one is non-workers. For example, those right workers which are not willing to work, though that population which is not willing to work, right? For example, people who are going for higher education, the pensioner population, right, etc. So those who are not willing to work, children, etc., all of them are collectively referred to as non-workers. Then we have discussed different types of unemployment, right? For example, what is a frictional unemployment, what is a structural unemployment, what is seasonal, what is cyclical. In fact, I've also discussed what is a disguised unemployment, what is natural rate of unemployment, etc. Frictional means a person will quit one job, join another job. I'll repeat it. Frictional is when a person will quit one job, join another job for a short duration for whatever number of days, the person doesn't have a job. That kind of unemployment is called as frictional unemployment. Second one is a structural unemployment. Structural means whenever there is an advancement in the technology, as a result of advancement in the technology, certain jobs will be lost. That is called as a structural unemployment. Third one is a seasonal unemployment. Whenever there's a change in the season, as a result of the change in the season, right, unemployment will be created. For example, I told you agriculture labor, they do not have work throughout the year. When there's a sowing season, when there's a harvesting season, that is a duration when they generally get the jobs. And finally, cyclical unemployment, whenever there's a change in the health of the economy. For example, let's say from a boom phase, from a growth phase, imagine economy will fall into, right? Economy will fall into, right? Let's say recession. Economy will fall into depression. And when that will happen, that is called as cyclical unemployment. Cyclical unemployment. So frictional, structural, seasonal, and cyclical. These are the four types of unemployment. In addition to this, I've also told you what is a disguised unemployment. Disguised unemployment simply means whenever there is whenever there is more than required number of workers, you require only two people to complete a job, but you have, let's say, five people to complete the job. Despite having more number of people, productivity does not change. Marginal productivity remains the same. It doesn't change, right? So that is the reason, right, we say this is a disguised unemployment. Now after that, how do we measure, these unemployment, employment rates, etc.? These are the different ratios, rates. One is labor force participation rate, LFPR. Second one is unemployment rate. Third one is worker population ratio. Fourth one is proportion unemployed. Okay, I'll repeat it. One is a labor force participation rate. Second one is unemployment rate. Third one is worker population ratio. Fourth one is proportion unemployed. Now, labor force participation rate basically represents out of the total population, I repeat, out of the total population, how much of the population is actually willing to work. Is it okay? I'll repeat it. Out of the total population, how much of the population is willing to work, that is actually represented in the form of labor force or labor force participation rate. Second, right, unemployment rate. Unemployment rate basically means how much of the labor force, how much of the population which is willing to work is not having jobs. is unable to get jobs in the market. It is not employed. That is called as unemployment rate. In fact, if you remember yesterday's discussion, I said unemployment rate is the most important one for you, and very often you will come across unemployment rate in the newspaper. Third one is a WPR, worker population ratio. Worker population ratio as well as proportion unemployed. You can simply calculate using LFPR itself. That is basically worker population ratio represents how much of the total population is right employed, and proportion unemployed, how much of the total population is unemployed. In fact, I said generally surveys are conducted for all of this. And do you remember that the current survey, right? The survey that we are following right now for all of these rates are concept of PLFS. Right? Yesterday, I believe I've told you this concept of PLFS, that is periodic labor force surveys. Earlier, we used to have once every 5 years. Now we are conducting it right on quarterly basis as well as annual basis. That is called as periodic labor force surveys. Now, then we have discussed what is the problem, what is this concept of jobless growth phenomenon, right? What is this idea of a jobless growth? In fact, I said in case of India, there is an issue of jobless growth, there is an issue of underemployment, there is an issue of unemployment as well. Now, what is this jobless growth? Jobless growth simply means it's a situation in the economy wherein the GDP growth rate of the economy is very high. GDP growth rate is much higher, whereas employment growth rate is very negligible, very, very low, which means we are producing goods, we are selling goods, etc. But we are not creating sufficient number of jobs. We are not creating sufficient number of jobs. That situation is called as a jobless growth. And in fact, in case of India, for the last 1.5 decade, there is the argument that India is experiencing a jobless growth phenomenon. Is it okay? I'll repeat the statement. For the last 1.5 decades, there is this argument that India is experiencing a jobless growth phenomenon. How can we prove that? Please have a look at employment elasticity. The employment elasticity is actually declining. Employment elasticity is actually declining, right? Which means, right, on one side, GDP growth rate is higher. On the other side, employment growth rate is very low, right? That is employment elasticity, which also means, please understand, yesterday we have discussed all of this. The growth in the earlier times, the growth in, let's say, 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago, was much more productive in terms of creation of jobs. Is the statement okay with all of you? The growth earlier was much more productive in terms of creation of jobs. The growth used to create more jobs earlier compared to how many jobs are creating today. That is 1% of growth would create more jobs earlier compared to what it is creating today. Second issue in case of India is the skilled labor availability. Right, yesterday we have discussed this. In fact, today, right, there is an article regarding the skilling. Right, I've given you a list of articles. Right, for the last time, the fifth week, write your assignment. Again, this week's assignment, I've given a list of articles. Please go through that. Couple of days ago, there was this article in case of a business line which spoke about what is the issue of skilling in India. Right, are we having sufficient skilled labor, etc., etc. So that article is given. Please read that. So availability of skilled labor in case of India is very, very low, very, very low. Investment that has happened, most of the investment has gone into capital intensive sector, which means investment is high. It can lead to higher production, but because we are investing in capital machinery, creation of jobs is very, very less. Majority of the contribution comes from the services sector. More than 50% comes from services sector. Service sector does not create a lot of jobs compared to manufacturing sector. And one more point that we discussed was the issue of labor laws. The labor laws in case of India are very old, right? Most of them were created decades ago. And today, right, if you look at the situation in the market, the labor laws are very strict, very stringent. That is the reason a lot of the companies are demanding that the state governments, the central government amend their labor laws, right? Give them more flexibility, provide them with more flexibility in terms of the labor law implementation. Done. So these are some of the issues that we have discussed, right? Then a lot of population being stuck up in agriculture sector, issues with agriculture sector, etc., etc. We were supposed to start with skilling initiative, correct? We were supposed to start with the skilling initiatives or the reforms in the initiative. Let's start. Let's start. Yesterday in webinar, you said semiconductor sector is capital intensive and we are labor intensive. But here it says that there is a high investment in capital. Yesterday in webinar, we also discussed that our labor is skilled and this will work in your favor. But here you are saying very low skill. How is that all possible? All of this is contradicting. My dear, please read the PPT at least very carefully. Please read the PPT at least carefully. If you do not listen to me properly, then definitely yes, you will get all of these doubts. Did I say that the whole of India, whatever labor is there, it is skilled? Did I say that? That webinar is still available. Check it. It is still available, by the way. Check it. I never said the total labor in Indian market is skilled. I said what skilled labor is there for semiconductor. For that specific sector, in that sector, we have good skilled manpower. If you do not listen to me carefully, then you will simply say the whole economy is contradicting. Listen carefully first. Okay. Now, what are the initiatives? What reforms have been implemented by the government? Right. First one, Skill India Initiative. Under Skill India Initiative, right, we have launched this initiative back in 2015. The aim under the Skill India Initiative is to target and skill 40 crore population in India. Under this, our aim is to provide skill certifications as well as vocational training. Next one, Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. For promotion of skilling only, we have one more initiative, Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. Let me show you certain data regarding Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. Please do not read everything in detail, right? Especially, I've taken this table. I've taken this table from Economic Survey. So what does the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana state? It simply says that PMKVY was launched in 2015 under the initiative of skilling, right? The PMKVY was launched back in 2015. And over a period of time, P1 KVY 1.0 has been launched, 2.0 has been launched, 3.0 has been launched. Now we are discussing 4.0, etc. So Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana has been launched, under which they will provide a training. They will provide training and give you a certificate, or else there is a concept of recognition of prior learning, RPL, recognition of prior learning. What is this? Recognition of prior learning. Recognition of prior learning simply means you already have certain skill set, but you do not have certificate. All of you okay with this? Recognition of prior learning means you already have a skill set, you know certain skills, but you do not have a certificate for that. That population will be covered under this and a certificate will be issued for them. And that is called as a recognition of prior learning, RPL. Now, what is the importance of Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana? Please understand this very carefully. Earlier, this argument will be used in UPSC. Earlier, the labor in case of India was a supply driven. I will repeat the statement here. Earlier, the labor in case of India was a supply driven. Whereas with new initiatives, the labor in case of India will be demand driven. Understand the difference? I'll explain it. Have patience and listen first. I said earlier, right? Earlier, the labor in case of India was a supply driven. Now, the labor in case of India is a demand driven. Right? Sir, what do you mean by this statement? Let me explain this. Imagine you start a manufacturing facility. Okay, imagine you start a manufacturing facility. Here are two situations. You tell me which is better. First situation, you start a manufacturing facility. You will try to hire labor. Whatever labor is available in the market, you will try to hire based on your requirement. That is example one. Is it okay? Labor is already there in the market, right? You will try to hire based on your requirement, you will try to hire it. Second example, Government of India. Government of India, I'll come to that. Government of India through district councils will map what is the skilling requirement. Second example, listen to me very carefully. Government of India under Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana now will set up skilling councils. District councils will be set up, and this council, right, this skilling council will map means find out, conduct a survey as to what kind of skill sets, what kind of technicians, what kind of engineers, what kind of let's say vocational training is required in the district, then make a curriculum, provide a training to people, and give a certificate to them. Now you will go to the market, and you already know that, right, there are sufficient number of people who got the skill set as per your requirement. You will hire them. Now both of these examples, can you, right, agree with me if I say second example is much better compared to first example? All of you okay? Anybody has a doubt regarding it, regarding this? Second example is a much better compared to first example. Meaning what? Earlier, right, I'll tell you the fact now. Earlier, we simply decided to provide training, right? A skill set A, B, C, D. We trained and we thought that this labor would be absorbed in the market. Now, Government of India says because of that, there can be a skill gap. Possible or not? Because of that, there could be a skill gap. Even today, this is happening, by the way. Please read the article that I've given to you. Because of that, there can be a skill gap. Skill gap means what? I have a training, I have a certification, but that skill set, you do not require it. As a manufacturer, as a company, you do not require a person with that kind of a certification. So obviously, you will not hire me. Obviously, you will not hire me because I have a skill, I have a certificate, but you don't require that skill. So what would happen is that can create a skill gap. And yesterday, please let me know, did we discuss the concept of a skill mismatch? Did we discuss the concept of skill gap? Yes or no? Yesterday we have discussed this. So argument is simple here. Earlier what used to happen is we provided training. It's not that we did not provide training. We provided training. But most of the times we found out that the training, the skill sets that we have provided training for, those skills are not required in the market. The market is demanding, the employers are demanding some other type of skilling requirement. Now to address this, please remember, very recently Government of India has launched, from 2021, Government of India has launched Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana 3.0. I repeat, from 2021, Government of India has launched Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana 3.0. And what is the speciality of Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana 3.0? Under this, government says, first, I will conduct a survey. Every district, I will set up a council, district skill promotion council, and this promotion council, skilling initiative, they will conduct a survey in the district first. They will find out what kind of companies are operating in the district. They will try to find out what kind of machinery they are using, what kind of technology they are using, and based on that, they will create a certificate course under which we will provide training for operation of these machineries. We'll provide training for operation of this kind of a technology. And after the certification is over, they'll be easily be able to find a job in the market. Can I say, based on this example, can I say, earlier, the labor in case of India was a supply driven. Now the labor in case of India is a demand driven. Right? All of you will understand this statement now. Right? UPSC can use these kind of statements. Earlier, the labor in case of India's market was supply driven. We used to simply supply labor without mapping what kind of skilling is required. But now we have understood that is not going to work. Lot of unemployment might happen, underemployment might happen, skill mismatch might happen. That is the reason we have shifted to a new initiative where we are going to first map what kind of skills are required, then provide training, right? That is the reason we say labor is a demand driven now. and that is specifically possible, that is specifically done under Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana 3.0. Right, so one is Skill India initiative, where we want to target 40 crore people, provide them skilling, provide them training, and give them certificate. Another one is a Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, under which we want to skill them, provide a certificate, or they already have the skill set. We will simply give the training, we will simply provide them with the certification so that they will get the jobs in the market. Okay, right. So this is a Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. Third one is a National Apprenticeship Promotion Scheme, NAPS. National Apprenticeship Promotion Scheme, NAPS. Now, what is this apprentices? What is this concept of apprentices? Listen to me very carefully now. Apprentices are nothing but trainees. What do you mean by apprentice? Apprentice is nothing but a trainee. Now, what is this concept of apprenticeship program? Lot of companies will hire people for training purposes. Internship. Apprenticeship is nothing but concept of internship only. For certain number of months, usually for 1 year, people are hired, and remember this, right? These are trained. This population or these workers are trained. But please understand this, apprentices are not full-time workers for a company. Apprentices are simply the trainees who are going to work for a certain number of months, and after that, right, the company says, yes, we have trained this person has got this kind of a skill set, a certificate will be issued by the company. Now, why this is important? Government of India promotes apprenticeship program. Government of India wants companies to hire more and more apprentices. And the importance of this is, imagine you're operating a company, you own a company, you will hire me under the apprenticeship program. Now, is it not okay if I say, when I work as an apprentice for your company, you will provide me training, you will give me the training in the kind of skill set that you require? Yes or no? Whether you agree or disagree, please do let me know. Right, so you have hired me for an apprenticeship program, right, trainee program or internship program. Will you not provide me with the skill set which are required by you? Of course, yes. Right, you know what kind of machinery you are handling, you know what kind of skill sets are required. So for 1 year, you will train me as to how to operate these machines. And after 1 year training is over, automatically you know that I have sufficient skill set. You will, right, most of the times it might happen, or they might simply say no use of this worker. What companies do is, they will train and then they will hire the intern. They'll simply hire the apprenticeship as a full-time worker. But please understand, because you are not a full-time employee, for this apprenticeship program, stipend is given to you. For the apprenticeship program, stipend is given to you. You're not earning salary, you're earning a stipend. A monthly certain amount of money will be fixed to you. That is called as a stipend. Many companies say, government wants me to hire an apprentice, a trainee, or right, an intern like this, but I don't want to pay stipend for the person. I don't want to pay so much amount of money for the person because I have full-time workers. That is the reason, under the National Apprenticeship Program, please have a look at this. Government of India, from one industry to another industry, certain amount of stipend burden will be undertaken by the government. Is the logic okay? Certain amount of stipend burden. For a company, stipend is a burden. Certain amount of stipend, the burden of it will be undertaken by the government. Government will pay for some of the stipend money. Right, so that the companies will hire more and more apprentices. Companies, after training them, will absorb them easily. That is called as a National Apprenticeship Program. So one is Skill India, second one is a Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, third one is a Apprenticeship Promotion Scheme. In fact, there are many more initiatives. For example, there are employment melas. Have you heard of this? There are employment melas, which are, right, that is nothing but job melas, which are conducted by the state government as well as central government. employment mela or job mela, which are conducted by the center as well as the state government. What is the idea of a mela here? Right? Various companies will participate in the melas, and various job seekers, right? People who are searching for the jobs will go to the melas in search of a job. So basically, the job mela or employment mela is conducted by the center or the state in order to make the employment seeker as well as the employment giver, right? They want both of them to meet at a single place, because large number of companies come to the melas. An individual can appear for multiple interviews and get, right, if a candidate is good, they can easily get the job during these melas. Sir, are these melas also referred as fairs? Yes, right. English term is a job fair, employment fair. Hindi term is mela, right? So employment melas, job melas, or employment fairs or job fairs, so one and the same. Right? In fact, Government of India also has set up a website. For example, there's a website by the name of MSME Sampark. MSME Sampark. Right? What is this MSME Sampark? Various MSME units are registered onto the MSME Sampark, right? And using this portal, they are able to get access to basically the CVs, right? The job applications of many of these employment seekers. All of you are okay with this? Right? So argument is, there are people who are searching for jobs. They have uploaded their, right, job CVs, curriculum vitae, or job applications in this portal, and MSME units which are registered on this can get access to their job applications. They can, right, ask for them to come to interview. So argument is simple. Various reforms have been undertaken by the government in order to promote employment generation, training, etc., etc. So what are the other reforms? Startup India initiative. Will it create employment opportunity? Please do let me know. Startup India initiative, Make in India initiative. Are we not targeting 100 million jobs under Make in India, or for that matter even PLI? Production linked incentives. Is it not going to create a job opportunity for Indian economy? Yes. What special economic zones? Employment opportunities? Yes. So I hope you understand, lot of these reforms have been implemented by the government, where one of the outcomes is basically creation of employment, creation of job. Okay. Next, labor laws are being rationalized now. All of you heard of this? Labor laws are being amended, are being changed, or are being rationalized. For example, the overall labor laws in case of India, couple of years ago, the overall labor laws of central government as well as state government, overall labor laws were more than 100, not are, were more than 100. Right? The overall number of labor laws were more than 100 in India. But in case of India, now what is happening? Many of the state governments are repealing, are withdrawing or amending these labor laws so that it becomes easier for the companies to conduct business in India. Central government, in fact, has taken more than 35 labor laws and has reviewed them and has consolidated these 35 plus labor laws into 4 labor codes. Correct? It has basically taken more than 30 labor laws, has converted them into easier 4 labor codes. For example, now Government of India is proposing a labor code on social welfare, a labor code on right safety, etc., etc. So 4 labor codes are being proposed, but not yet implemented. I don't think so they are going to implement for at least the next 1 or 2 years. Why? Elections are there. These kind of labor reforms will not be taken up during the time of elections. So Government of India is also doing this idea of a labor laws rationalization, and state government is also doing this labor laws rationalization so as to make it easier, for companies to operate in India. MSME reforms. Why MSME reforms are connected to labor? Right? Do you remember the data that I've given? Right? Can I say one of the largest, jobs are accounted by MSME sector, and more than 11 crore people are working in the MSME sector. So the stability of MSME sector is very much relevant in terms of having those jobs, creating new jobs. So MSME reforms is also associated with the job market in India. And finally, Pradhana Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, Skill India, etc. So these are some of the reforms that have been undertaken by the government in order to address the issues in the labor market, create new jobs in the labor market, provide skilling to the population, etc. Done? Okay. Now the concept of gig economy, right? This is also very famous now. The concept of gig economy, right? What is this gig economy? What do you mean by gig worker, right? What is the importance of this, etc.? Point number one, how do you define a gig worker, right? How do you define who is a gig worker? I've given you two definitions. You can use one of them. Have a look at this. A gig worker is a person who will perform work or participate in a work arrangement and earns from such activities outside a traditional employer-employee relationship. Right? I'll repeat the statement. A gig worker is a person who performs work or participates in a work arrangement and then earns from such activities outside of traditional employer-employee relationship. What do you mean by that? Let me explain. Listen now, let me explain. Imagine you join a company as a full-time worker, whether you're a software engineer, right, or you're a mechanical engineer, or right, you're a commerce student, doesn't matter. You have joined a company as a full-time worker. Can I say this kind of a concept? It's a traditional concept. You are working as a full-time worker for a company. It's a full-time or traditional concept. What is this traditional arrangement or traditional the concept here? You will work on day-to-day basis. You will work 9 hours per day for the company. Yes or no? If you have seen the arrangement, if you have seen the agreement that you generally sign, that is offer letter that you sign with a company, they will tell you per day, right? That is, let's say 5 days a week. Per day, you will have to work 9 hours. Second, right? The company is clearly telling you what is your salary. What is your fixed salary, right? What is the cost to the company, right? Yes or no? What is the cost to the company? For example, they will write CTC. See the agreement, see the offer letter, you will understand what I'm talking about. What is your CTC, cost to the company, right? They're clearly telling you what is the cost to the company. Third, once you become a worker, right, don't you think the company will have certain fixed number of holidays to be given to you? Correct? Every company, before the year starts or in the beginning of a new year, they will publish a calendar, right? In the calendar, they will say that 15th August is a public holiday, right? You can take it, right? Let's say Diwali is an optional holiday. If you want, you can take a holiday on that, right? This is an optional holiday. Dasara is an optional holiday. Krishna Janmashtami is an optional holiday. So there is a list of public holidays. There is a list of optional holidays as well. Then if you're a female employee, the company says, right, for maternity, you can take certain number of months paid leave. All of you heard of this? For maternity, certain months of paid leave, you can apply for it. So I hope you understand this is a traditional worker and employer and employee relationship. All of you okay with this? This is a traditional employer and employee relationship, right? This is a traditional concept. But in case of a gig worker, what happens? In case of a gig worker, there is no concept of CTC, right? Think of it. There is no concept of CTC. For example, I'm pretty sure you must have ordered, right, certain products through Blinkit. Correct? Many of you would have ordered. Sir, I've not ordered. Don't worry. At least you've heard of it. There is right, a quick commerce company now, Blinkit. All of you have heard of Swiggy. Correct? You've heard of Swiggy. You've heard of Zomato. You've heard of Ola, etc. So who is providing these services? Blinkit, delivery person. Swiggy, right? Swiggy, delivery person. Zomato, delivery person, etc. All of them are basically gig workers. All of them are basically gig workers. And what is the argument here? The person who is a delivery partner, for example, Swiggy delivery partner or Zomato delivery partner, they will be paid based on number of deliveries that they actually do. I'll repeat the statement. They will be paid based on number of deliveries that they do. Ola, they will be having certain number of, let's say drives that they're supposed to take on day-to-day basis. So please think of it. It is not a common traditional arrangement of CTC in case of a gig work. You provide this facility, you provide this amount of a service, and based on that, I will give you per delivery, I will give you so much amount of money. So can I say this is a kind of a work arrangement? All of you okay? This is a kind of work arrangement wherein they will provide, that is a gig worker will provide a certain activities, will provide certain services, and based on this, they will be paid money. Based on this, they will be paid money. Even then, if it is difficult to understand, have you heard of contractual workers? This is also very famous now. Contractual workers. Or let's say the people who are working for only for certain project, etc. Freelancing, concept of freelancing, you must have heard of freelancing work. What do you mean by freelancing? Are you a full-time worker for a company? If you're a freelancer, you are not a full-time worker. The company will give you certain work, you finish the work, give it to the company, and company for that work will pay money to you. That is a concept of a gig work. Freelancing is a part of gig work only. So this is very, very famous now. This is a definition of a gig work. Are those having a non-standard work arrangement with their employers and share a non-traditional employer-employee relationship. Every definition talks about the same thing. It is not like a traditional arrangement. It is a new type of arrangement where only certain work will be allocated. That work, if you complete, on that completion of the work, you will be paid money. That is the concept of gig work. Very, very famous now. Very famous. Please be very careful. Why are the companies preferring gig workers? Why is that? In the domestic market today, there is a lot of demand for the gig work. Unlike earlier situation, why the demand is actually rising up, not only in India but even in the rest of the world. Why gig workers are getting more and more preference now? Reason is very simple. You are not a full-time employee, you are a part-time employee for the company. Very simple idea. You are not a full-time worker, you are a part-time worker. For example, what do you mean by part-time worker? Is there any guaranteed expenditure the company will incur if you're a gig worker compared to a CTC in case of a full-time worker? All of you okay with this? If you're a full-time worker, the company knows guaranteed they will incur this much amount of expenditure on you. But if you're a part-time worker, you're a freelancer, you're a gig worker, company says, you provide so many deliveries, only then I will pay you money. So that component of expenditure is very, very less in case of gig workers. Second, hidden benefits are not provided for a gig worker. There is no concept of hidden benefits. It is entirely up to the company whether they want to provide hidden benefits for a gig worker. What is the meaning of a hidden benefit here? For example, if you're a gig worker, company might simply say, I will not provide any insurance to you. You're a full-time worker, many companies provide insurance facilities. Have you heard of this? If you're a full-time worker, company has to contribute half of the PF amount, EPF, Employment Provident Fund. Half of the EPF contribution has to come from the company now. Various companies provide medical expenditures. Companies provide bonus to the employees. Whereas if you're a gig worker, no holidays. No component of a holiday for you. You want to take a holiday, no salary will be paid. All of you agree with me? If you're a gig worker, let's say in a month, you take 7 days off. On 7 days, you don't work. only for the remaining 23 days, what work you have done, on that payment is given to you, assuming the month has 30 days. Whereas, think of this, whereas you are full-time worker, every weekend, Saturdays and Sundays, many of you are waiting for tomorrow as well as day after tomorrow, correct? Many of you who are going to offices, etc., right? You're already have made plans. So this Saturday I want to go there. This Sunday I want to enjoy this. But please understand, if Saturday and Sundays account for around 8 days in a month, right? Company will not deduct a salary for 8 days. Company will give you salary for full 30 days. All of you okay with this? Right? That company has hired you, and imagine you don't have a weekend, a long weekend is there. You are not allowed to work on Saturdays. So Saturday and Sunday, if you take 4 weekends, you'll have 8 days. Right? 8 days, you do not have any work. But the company will not deduct your salary for 8 days, give the salary for remaining 22 days. Absolutely no. Or else, can I give you one more example? 15th August. Very recently, we celebrated 15th August. 15th August was a public holiday. Do you think company will deduct your 1 day salary because you have not worked on 15th if you're a full-time employee? If you're a full-time employee, no deduction whatsoever. But if you are a gig worker and you did not work on 15th, will you be paid money? Absolutely no. So a full-time worker has a lot of hidden benefits, whereas a gig worker does not enjoy any of these benefits. And can I also say, a full-time worker, there is always a potential growth for the full-time worker. What do you mean by potential growth? Today you will join as a software engineer. After 3 years, you might become a team leader. After 10 years, you might become a senior manager, etc., etc. So I hope you understand there is a potential growth for a full-time employee. That kind of growth is generally not available for a gig worker. Now, many of you ask me, in that case, why people will prefer to work as a gig worker? What is the reason? Why will people even look at gig work? Multiple reasons are there. One reason, they may not have sufficient educational qualification. Is that a problem or not? Right? Can they get, if you do not have a sufficient educational qualification, can you be appointed as a, right, let's say a vice president of the company? So educational qualifications might not be there. They might even lack certain skill set, or it could be a compulsion for them. Right now they want a job, right? Because the job market is not offering full-time job, they will prefer to work as a freelancer or a gig worker rather than waiting for 3 months or 4 months to get a job. For example, today, right, how many of you are reading newspapers? Job market is very right, very much complicated today. Complicated in the sense, in job market, a lot of people are losing jobs even today. I hope you understand. Lot of people, current situation I'm telling you, lot of people are losing jobs. Companies left and right are removing workers. Right? So companies, they're also feeling the burden. Pandemic, slowdown, recession in USA, slowdown in USA, right? Or let's say recession in the European market. Exports are getting affected. Outsourcing is getting affected. So job market is very tight right now. So apart from this, many people will simply say, I do not want to report for someone. I want to be my own boss. Have you heard of this? Right? Many of the people who are working like as a freelancers simply argue that I don't want to report to somebody. I don't want to keep on working for only one person. I want a flexibility. I want to decide when I want to work. I want to decide for whom I want to work. I want to decide what work I want to take up. I am my own boss, right? I want to be my own boss. Hence, I'm okay with freelancing work, right? So that is basically the argument why lot of people are working as gig workers in India. All of you okay with this? Lot of population is working as gig worker for these particular reasons. So what are the arguments in favor of gig work? It will provide lot of flexibility to the employee as well as employer. Employer today has work, they will give it to you and pay money for it. Tomorrow they don't have work, they will not allocate work to you, they will not give you money. Easily they can hire you for only certain work and they can remove you if they don't have work. So easy hiring, easy firing, that's possible. Flexibility for the employee. Employee will decide. In this case, employee will decide for which company they want to work, what kind of work they want to do, for how many days they want to work, right? That flexibility is given for employee in case of a gig worker. Employee can work for multiple organizations. Yes or no? Have you seen this? Same auto, they'll be working for Ola as well as Uber. Right? Have you seen this? Right? In fact, this is very famous now. Same auto, right? The auto driver will be working for Ola also, will be working for Uber also. They will have what is Ola auto number. They will have one sticker, and right behind they will have what is Uber auto sticker. So argument is simple. Same person can choose to work for multiple companies. Now nobody can stop you. Nobody can stop you, because remember this: you are a freelancer, you are a gig worker. There is no agreement that you will be working for only one employer. Such agreement doesn't exist, right? Such agreement does not exist in a gig work. So employee can work for multiple organizations, right, as per their requirement. Companies do not have to hire and pay full time, right, salaries for these employees, right? The full amount, the CTC, right? Company will not pay this. If you are working on that day, if you satisfy those conditions, they will give you the money. Otherwise, they will not give you the money. And contributes to the overall growth rate in the employment for the economy. So these are some of the functions, or some of the reasons in favor of promotion of gig work or gig economy in India. What are the arguments against gig workers? What are the arguments against the concept of a gig economy? First one, employees generally are not provided with other benefits. For example, imagine you are a freelancer, right? Can you take maternity paid leave if you're a gig worker? Think of it. Can you take maternity paid leave? In fact, in case of India, 6.5 months. Maternity paid leaves are 6.5 months now. It is much, much higher compared to earlier situation. But if you're a freelancer, can you take those leaves, paid leaves? No, company will not give you that, because you are not a full-time employee. Second, there is no job security for the employees. There is absolutely no job security. Today you might be hired, tomorrow, right, only for that work, tomorrow you might be remote. Company will say, we don't have any use for you. So in case of a gig worker, there is absolutely no job security. Third one, growth is also not possible. Many of the jobs, gig workers do not experience any kind of growth. For example, they will get the same amount of delivery payment last year also, after 2 years also. They will join Ola as a cab driver, right? They will continue to work as a cab driver only. There is no scope of growth. But on the other side, if you're a full-time worker, I'll give a very simple example. Imagine you become IAS officer, right? Don't you think there is a scope of growth for you? You will join as an IAS officer. Maybe you will be posted as a district collector to begin with. By the time you retire, you want to become a cabinet secretary. By the time you retire, you want to become a secretary, right? A joint secretary, or let's say a senior secretary for a ministry. So is there a scope of growth, right, in these kind of full-time jobs? Of course, yes. But in case of a gig worker, there is no scope of growth. Many companies, they will hire you only for that job. If you want to work only as that person or that worker, otherwise leave it. Okay, right? So no guaranteed growth. Employee may have to make certain amount of investment. Sir, what do you mean by this investment? You want to work as Ola cab driver. Please tell me, can you do that without having a car? Let me know. Right? Imagine, right? A person is there. The person wants to work as a Ola cab driver. Can they do that without having a car? No. So they will have to invest. Or a person wants to work as a Zomato delivery partner. And by the way, have you seen the ads? Right? If you have seen, you will know it. If you want to work as a Zomato delivery partner, they will have one condition. What is the condition? The person must have a bike. The person must have a valid driving license. Correct? See those ads, you will understand. The person must have a bike, the person must have a valid driving license, which means you are supposed to invest, make certain investment, right, for having this kind of gig work. Upskilling may not be provided by the company. Company may not provide a skill set so that you get a vertical movement, right? Company will not provide you any kind of skilling, right? You will have to skill yourself, right? Train yourself, get it trained from somebody else, etc. Company is not going to bear the burden of skilling for you. And companies cannot expect loyalty from the employee. Today you will work for Zomato, tomorrow you'll shift for Swiggy, day after tomorrow you'll become a delivery partner for Blinkit, right, etc., etc. So there is no concept of, right, loyalty from the employee as well as employer. It flows both the ways. Please understand this. Companies cannot expect loyalty from the employee. Do you think the employee is expecting loyalty from the company? No, employee also knows today they have work, so they will allocate to me. Tomorrow, if they don't have work, they will not allocate any work to me. So loyalty, concept of loyalty is not present in case of the gig worker. Done. So these are some of the points against the concept of gig work. Any issues? Any problem? Please do let me know. Working for multiple organizations is also moonlighting, which is not legal in some companies. My dear, please understand what is the concept of moonlighting. What is the idea for moonlighting? Please understand this very carefully. Moonlighting simply means you are already a full-time worker. You're already a full-time worker for a company. You already have signed a contract with the company that you are working for the company 9 hours a day, etc., etc. But once you finish the work, for example, generally they will use this, right, 9 to 5 jobs. Correct? They will use the number 9 to 5 jobs. Why this is called as moonlighting? Understand that. A traditional work, generally they will say it is a work from 9 to 5 or 10 to 6 like this. And once you have finished your 9 to 5 job, after that, you will start working for another company. All of you okay with this? So why this is called as moonlighting? Now is the logic okay? A traditional work, generally they will say it works from the working time period is 9 to 5. So after your work is over, that is after 9 to 5, you will join, right? You will start working for one more company, and because you are working in the night, because you are working for another company in the night, this is called as a moonlighting. Any problem with the term? This is why this is called as a moonlighting. Is it legal? Is it legal? It all depends on the state government law. It all depends on the contract that you have signed. I'll repeat the statement. It's a very gray area. It's a very gray area, right? There is no law which specifically says you are not allowed to moonlight. There is no law. But there are certain laws which were passed by the respective state governments, Establishments and Shops Act. Many state governments have an act by the name of Establishments and Shops Act. And state governments specifically say that if you're a full-time worker, then you're not supposed to work for one more company, right? So it depends on the laws of the government, plus it depends on the contract that you have signed with the government. Can I give you examples? Many companies have drafted a contract, that is an agreement which specifically says you are not allowed to work for any company except their company. Right? Can I give you examples? So for example, Wipro says our contract specifically says you will have to work only for Wipro, nobody else. Right? Forget about competitor. Nobody else you are allowed to work for. And there are other companies which say that, okay, you want to work after the 9 to 5. After this 9 to 5, you want to work. Okay, then allowed. But with certain condition. You are not allowed to work with my competitor. You are not allowed to work for this type of a product, etc., etc. Example, Swiggy. Have you heard of this? Swiggy is actually allowing concept of moonlighting, but with certain conditions. So I hope you understand this. Moonlighting, whether we like it or don't like it, it is already there. But is it perfectly illegal to have a moonlighting? No, that is also not correct. It all depends on the laws. It all depends on the contracts that the people sign when they join a company. Right? I hope you understand. So that is the concept of moonlighting. Right? So again, this is more of an ethical question rather than economics question. Moonlighting is more of an ethical dilemma. Should we allow it? If you allow it, what is the problem, etc., etc. Done? Okay. Right. So these are certain points regarding the gig economy, right? In favor of gig economy, against the gig economy, etc. Anybody has got any kind of a doubt, please do let me know. Otherwise, I'll go forward. Otherwise, I'll go to the next concept now. This is in totality regarding the concept of employment. Keep reading newspapers, update newspapers. My recommendation to you people is update newspapers. Please update newspapers. Sir, I know gig worker paid on basis of their presence, but you don't think it is good for economy, otherwise employees don't work well? Not necessarily, right? Not necessarily, please understand. We assume that full-time workers are inefficient. I hope you understand. We simply make an assumption that full-time workers are inefficient. No, it's not necessarily that full-time workers are inefficient. There is a probability. There's a probability that some of the workers may not be working up to their efficiency. But don't you think if you're a full-time worker, there is a carrot dangling in front of you? Carrot in the sense, would you want to be promoted or not? Would you want to earn more incentives? Would you want to become a vice president of the company? Then you'll have to perform very well. I hope you understand. Those people who perform very well are getting promoted. Their salaries will be increased, right? Their incentives will be paid more. So obviously, even if you're a full-time worker, there is a scope of getting more productivity from the full-time worker. Okay. Again, there is both the sides of the argument. Sir, government doing so much to give job, but why government is higher? Unemployment is higher in India? My dear, we have discussed this yesterday, right? Right, most of the jobs are there. Most of the people are working in agriculture sector. There is no guaranteed employment in agriculture sector, no guaranteed salary in agriculture sector. Investment is capital intensive, right? A service sector contributes very high to GDP, but service sector doesn't create more jobs compared to manufacturing jobs. Yesterday only we have discussed all of it. Okay, any other question? Sir, is it your last class? Yes, my dear, today is my last class. Okay. Any other question? Any doubts regarding what I've discussed so far? So this is a discussion regarding the concept of employment. Important, please be very, very careful. Reforms for gig economy. Again, reforms, many state governments are implementing reforms, but these are state government reforms, right? You cannot simply have a reform at the central level. In fact, central government also has proposed reforms in the labor laws. In the labor laws, they have proposed reforms. Right? But again, labor laws, I don't think so they'll be implemented now, right? Because you know the reason, right? I don't think so those will be implemented now. For example, there is a labor law on social welfare, social security, not social welfare, social security for gig workers. But I don't think so that will be implemented. Okay. Okay. Now, next concept of inclusive growth. Idea of inclusive growth. Now, what is the meaning of inclusive growth? Why there is a need for inclusive growth? Let's try and understand. Point number one. What do you mean by inclusive growth? Inclusive growth refers to both the pace as well as the pattern of growth. Both are connected and both must be promoted together. I'll repeat the statement here. Right? I'll repeat the statement here. Inclusive growth refers to both the pace as well as, right, the pattern of growth, which are interlinked and must be addressed together. What is this idea? Please let me know. Yesterday, right, yesterday and earlier class, did we discuss what is the idea of inclusive growth? I said we will have to achieve both growth as well as development. We'll have to achieve both growth as well as development. That is basically It refers to the pace of the growth as well as a pattern of the growth. The pace of the growth as well as a pattern of the growth. In fact, I asked you a simple question earlier, right? I believe yesterday only. Is it okay if India achieves, right, an economy of $5 trillion, if Indian economy becomes worth $5 trillion, but at the same point of time, India will also, right, India will also have largest population which is very poor. Is it okay to achieve that kind of a situation? No, your answer should be no. Right? Because please understand, when there is a growth, when there is a higher GDP, it simply means we are expecting that the benefit of the growth will also reach other sections of the society as well. What do you mean by other sections of the society? Anyways, rich people are going to get the benefit of growth. There should not be any doubt in your mind. Rich population, people who are already rich, no doubt they are going to get the benefit of growth. In what way? Their income will increase, their wealth will increase. But what about other sections of the society? What about poor people? What about agriculture houses? What about right below population, below poverty line population? So don't you think the benefits of this growth should be reaching to all the other sections of the society as well? If you can achieve that, that is called as inclusive growth. Point number one. And think of it. Can I say both growth and development? Both growth and development are connected to each other. All of you okay with this? Both growth and development are connected to each other, because if you can achieve higher growth by ensuring agriculture sector will work better, by ensuring more jobs are available in the market, by ensuring more taxes will be collected by rich people, will be used to provide healthcare for the poor people. Can we also ensure development is taking place in India? I hope all of you are understanding this. Both growth and development, both are connected to each other. How so? If growth is taking place, does it also mean that we should be able to take care of higher job generation in India? We should ensure that farmers are earning better incomes, and we should be able to ensure that more salaries are going to the houses, that gig workers are getting better payments. We should be able to ensure farmer suicides are not happening, etc. So by doing all of this, or else by collecting more taxes, using the taxes to provide welfare for the poor people, can we say both growth and development can be achieved together and both are connected? That is what exactly the World Bank says. That is what exactly the World Bank definition says. Right, so I'll repeat the definition here again. Listen to me very carefully here. Inclusive growth refers to both the pace as well as the pattern of the growth. Both are related to each other, hence both must be addressed together. Both should be promoted together. Do not promote only growth, do not promote only development, promote both of them together. For example, think of it. Please think of it. Is Government of India promoting growth as well as a development in India? And there are two students who are asking what is the difference between growth and development. My dear, have you attended earlier classes? My question to them will be, have you attended earlier classes? If you have attended, I have clearly discussed both the growth as well as development. Growth is a quantitative concept. Growth is a quantitative idea. What is a quantitative idea? Whenever you talk about growth in India, what are you referring to? Are you not referring to GDP? Whenever you talk about growth in India, what are you referring to? You are referring to GDP, right? Whenever you talk about development, are you referring to GDP? No, you are referring to what is the population which is poor, right? How many people do not have access to food grains in India? Right, how many schools have been opened up in India? Right, how many children are dying? Infant mortality rate. how many mothers are dying during the birth, maternal mortality rate, right? How much of the villages are covered under sanitation infrastructure? That represent development. And can I say development is nothing but what is the benefit because of a growth experienced by the population? All of you okay? What is development? What is the benefit that the population is enjoying because of the growth? If there is a growth, can I say more and more population will get jobs, more population will move out of poverty, more population will get access to healthcare, education, etc., etc. So you can achieve development if a country is experiencing very good growth rates. That is a basic connection. So development is qualitative. Development is always qualitative, whereas a growth is always quantitative. Right? This one we have discussed in the earlier classes as well. Now, this is the definition. Please remember the definition. Now, whenever you talk about inclusive growth in the context of India, what are you expecting? What are the features? What are the features of inclusive growth? For example, inclusive growth would simply mean that there are more and more jobs which are generated in India. Agriculture sector performs very well. Farmers are earning more income. Farmer suicides are coming down. And we are promoting industrialization. The poverty rates in the Indian economy will fall down, will come down. More and more population will get access to financial services. For example, they will get access to banking services. They will get access to insurance services. They will get access to, right, let's say many other types of financial services. Whatever regional disparities are there, whatever regional disparities, imbalances are there, these regional disparities will reduce, will come down, right? We will protect the environment as well, will reduce the wealth inequality, income inequality, all these disparities would be reduced, right? So all of these are the features of inclusive growth. Anybody has an issue regarding whatever I've discussed so far, please do let me know. All these are features of inclusive growth. In fact, please be very, very careful. Protection of environment is also associated with inclusive growth. Right? Do not be confused here. Why? Please do let me know. If you keep on polluting the environment, if you keep on polluting the environment, is it possible to achieve growth in the future? Is it possible to achieve development? Right? Don't you think pollution and inclusive growth, both of them are related? Right? Think of it, both of them are very much related. That is the reason there is so much of focus on sustainable development, sustainable growth. What do you mean by sustainable growth here? Whatever resources you are utilizing, do not abuse the resources. Do not overuse the resources. You will have to preserve these resources so that, right, in the future also, for the future generation, resources are still available for achieving growth. That is a concept of sustainable development, sustainable growth. So there is a very close linkage between protection of environment as well as inclusive growth. Now think of it, can I say, by promoting infrastructure also, you can promote inclusive growth? Let me know. By promoting infrastructure as well, we can promote inclusive growth. All of you are okay with this? Sir, what do you mean by infrastructure? Social infrastructure, economic infrastructure, digital infrastructure. Right? A social, economic, digital. Right? By implementing these types of infrastructure, right, are we not going to achieve growth? Are we not promoting development? Of course, yes. So that is an integral part of inclusive growth only. So do not be confused. Do not get confused how infrastructure is connected to inclusive growth, how protection of environment is connected to inclusive growth. Right? For example, suddenly, let's say next year, this question can be asked under social issues. This kind of a question can be asked in social issues. Right? That is, they will talk about, let's say, poverty measures undertaken by the government, how it is connected to inclusive growth. They will ask you to connect the dots. And you'll keep on wondering why they are asking inclusive growth under social issues. My dear, don't you think there's a connection between reforms undertaken by the government to promote welfare of the people with inclusive growth? Of course, yes, there is a connection. So they might ask you in different papers, do not be confused. Please do not be confused. Okay, this is basically the introduction, right? The definition of inclusive growth. Next, has India achieved inclusive growth? Right? Has actually India achieved inclusive growth? Right? Let's try and understand. Point number one, right? Fact is simple. We are yet to achieve inclusive growth, by the way. Right? Answer to this question is India is yet to achieve inclusive growth. Yet to achieve. I'll not say no inclusive growth, yet to achieve inclusive growth. How can you say so? Right? What are the arguments in favor of, right, your answer? First one, large number of people in India are still classified as poor. Poverty has come down, right? I hope you have read the articles, right? A couple of weeks ago, was there an article regarding multi-dimensional poverty index? Yes or no? Niti Aayog, multi-dimensional poverty index. And multi-dimensional poverty index, right, basically says the poverty numbers have actually come down in India. But even today, right, this is a fact, by the way, even today, can I say, large number of people are still poor in India? I hope you understand. Right? Yes, the poverty has come down. Nobody is denying it. But even today, large number of people in India are actually poor. Right? They do not have sufficient incomes to take care of a household expenditure. That is the precise reason why Government of India provides a free food grains now. Right? I hope you understand. Government cannot simply say, for that matter, any government, they cannot simply say there are no poor people in India. If there are no poor people in India, then why are you providing free healthcare? Why are you providing free education? Why are you providing free food grains if there are no poor people? So I hope you understand, right? Even today, in case of India, despite having a third largest economy or the fifth largest economy, right, whatever measurement you are using, despite that, India has one of the largest number of poor people in the world, right? That is one. Second one, India faces issue of unemployment, underemployment. Anybody has a problem with the second point? India faces the issue of unemployment as well as underemployment, right? That is also a problem, right? If you cannot address it, you cannot achieve inclusive growth. Third one, there is a huge income inequality as well as wealth inequality. There is a huge income inequality as well as wealth inequality. Now, how do I prove that there is an income inequality as well as a wealth inequality? Please look at it. Back in 21-22, there was one report which was published, World Inequality Report. Right, this is published by Paris Agency, World Inequality Report. Now, what is this World Inequality Report? The World Inequality Report provides information regarding what is the income inequality in different countries, how much is the wealth inequality in different countries, and how much is the gender income gap, right? The gender income gaps in the respective countries. Now make observations, please make observations. And what is the importance of these kinds of reports? You can use these reports to consolidate your answers. You can use these kind of reports to give a data, to give a factual data and improve the quality of answer. Now, point number one, there are certain students who are asking, sir, what is the difference between income and wealth? My dear, please understand, income is nothing but the salary that you are earning. Income is nothing but the salary that you earn. Wealth is the assets that you're owning. Both are different. All of you okay with this? I'll repeat it again. Income is the salary, right? How much salary are you earning? That is called as income. But wealth is nothing but the amount of assets that you have. For example, imagine a person is there, right? Let's say person A, right? This person, let's say, is earning a salary of 1 lakh rupee, and the person has 10 hectares of land. The person A has 10 hectares of land. So can I say income of the A is 1 lakh rupee, wealth of A is 10 hectares of land. All of you okay with this? income of A is 1 lakh rupee, whereas wealth of A is 10 hectares of land. Right? So wealth is different, income is different. And in case of India, wealth inequality is there, income inequality, both of them present. But what is the situation? How much inequality is there in India? That's a mind-boggling number. Please have a look at it. Please have a look at it. First one is income difference. How much is the income inequality? As per the data, the top 1% of the population. Top 1% means what? If you arrange the population in descending order of their income. All of you understand this? If you arrange the population in descending order of their income, the top 1% of the people in India earn total of 22% of the incomes in India. Anybody has a problem? Please do let me know right now. Right? Apply your CSAT concept. Apply CSAT mind, you will understand. If you arrange the population in decreasing order of their income, and if you just count, right, the top 1% of the people here, they are earning 22% of the total incomes which are generated in India. And the bottom 50%, the bottom 50% of the people, again in terms of income, the bottom 50% of the people put together, they are earning only 13% of the incomes. Only 13% of the total incomes. So tell me now, is there income inequality in India or not? First question. And second question, all of you will agree, if I say income inequality is very, very high in India. Let me know. Right? First question was basically, is there income inequality? And you can see the data. Yes, there is income inequality. And second question is the income inequality very, very high in India? Of course, yes. To the extent that top 1% earns more than 1/5 of the total incomes, and bottom 50, half of the population, bottom part is earning less than 1/6 of the total income. So you can imagine to what extent income inequalities are present. What about wealth inequality? What about the wealth inequality? Right, the top 1% owns 33% of total wealth in India. The top 1% earns a total of 33% of wealth in India. Whereas the bottom 50%, right, the bottom 50% is actually owning less than 6% of wealth in India. So again, imagine to what extent the wealth inequality is present in India. Wealth inequalities are also very, very high. Wealth inequalities are also very, very high. And some of the students, they are using their calculator, they are adding all of these, and they are telling me, how can this be more than 100%? How can this be like this, etc., etc.? My dear, right, please be very careful. Do not apply CSAT everywhere. Do not apply CSAT everywhere. Right, these are bottom, right, bottom 50%, middle 40%, top 10%. Now don't you think top 1% is also part of top 10%? I hope you understand. There are a couple of students who are saying, sir, 33 plus 64, 33 plus 64 becomes 97. Right? I'm very good in CSAT. Right? So 33 plus 64 becomes 97. 97 plus another 30 becomes 127. 127 plus another 6%, 133%. How can that be possible? How can you have 133%? My dear, it is top 1%, top 10%. So now is the logic okay if I say top 1% is part of top 10%? I hope you understand. Right? So again, do not simply calculate like this and say, right, sir, how can that be possible? Simply remember the data. And now there are two students who are saying this report was published in 2021. I will write exam in 2025. How can you use the report? I am not saying use only this report. Did I ever say use only this report? If you listen to my lecture very carefully, I continuously keep on telling you, use the data, use updated data, use the data which is available in the year when you're writing exams. Not just this, every class, wherever I've come across data, I've told you the same thing. For example, earlier, when I discussed earlier chapters, I told you next year economic survey will be published. If the data is there, take it from there. Next year, budget documents are published. If data is there, take it from there. Next year, one or the other report will be published. Right? In the year when you're writing the exam, take the data from there, quote the name of the report. Simple idea. Quote the name of the report. Right? So always use the updated data in whichever year you're writing, one or the other report will be there. Take that and quote that data. Okay, done. Right, so this is a world inequality report. And based on this report, please have a look at the right side now. Please have a look at the right side. Can I say there is also huge gender income inequality that is present in India? I'll repeat the point here. Right? Can I simply say there is a huge gender income inequality? That is 18% of the total incomes are generated. Right? 18% of the total incomes are generated. These are generated or these are earned by women workers in India, female workers in India, which means remaining 82%. Remaining 82% is actually earned by the male workforce, which also indicates that there is a lot of disparity in the pay packages. Yes or no? Have you come across a pay parity very recently? Let me check how many of you are reading newspapers in the right way. Have you come across pay parity very recently? That is, in case of sports, think of it. In case of sports, was there a discussion regarding pay parity? For example, very recently, right, a female soccer, right, that is a female World Cup was actually conducted. Was there a discussion regarding pay parity? In cricket, is there a discussion regarding pay parity? Right, because some of the people, right, as expected, some of the people basically said, sir, if a male population is working more, they are earning more. What is the problem? The problem is not that they are working more, my dear. The problem is that for the same amount of hours that they are both are working, male population generally on an average earns more compared to female population. I hope you understand. The problem is not that they are working more male population is working, so they are earning more. The problem is not that. Problem is, if one person, let's say female worker works 9 hours, male worker also work for 9 hours, on an average, male worker is paid a higher salary package compared to female worker. That is the problem. Right? That is the problem. That is the reason. That is the reason. Now there is a discussion of pay parity in sports. Pay parity in movies. Have you come across this? Pay parity even in movies. Pay parity in all the other areas as well. Right? So only 18% is earned by female workers, which means there is a lot of gender income inequality which is present in India. So point number one, population which resides, which can be classified as poor is very high in India. Second, India faces the issue of unemployment, underemployment. There is income inequality as well as wealth inequality. Regional imbalances are still existing, right? This should not be very doubtful to you. Sir, what do you mean by regional imbalances? Can you see certain states which are very much developed, where per capita incomes are very high, where the quality or the standard of living of the population is very high? And can you also see certain places where the quality of living is very bad? Very bad in the sense very low. Right? Per capita incomes are very low. Employment generation is very less. Industrialization is very less. Slums are there, etc., etc. So argument is simple. Despite implementing so many reforms, that even today regional disparities are present. In fact, if you remember correctly, addressing regional disparities was also one of the objectives under 5-year plans. Right? I hope you remember that. Right? Growth, equity, modernization, and self-reliance. In equity, the Planning Commission wanted to address issues of regional disparities. Even today, regional disparities are present. Right? So that is a concern. And industrial growth rate is adding lot to the pollution. We are one of the largest polluters in the international market. I don't know whether if you know this. India is one of the largest polluters in the international market. We are the third largest or fourth largest polluters in the international market. So no doubt we are able to achieve higher growth, But in the process of achieving higher growth, we are also adding a lot to the overall pollution situation in India. Done? Right? So these are some of the reasons why we say that, right, India is yet to achieve inclusive growth. We are moving towards it. We are implementing reforms. We are moving towards it, but we are yet to achieve inclusive growth. Okay? Done? Now, what is the need for inclusive growth in India? Right? Why should we achieve inclusive growth? Point number one, right? Basically, the argument of population. India houses one of the largest populations. Right? In fact, as per all the estimates, we have become the largest population. Right? We have the largest population, and which also means we should ensure that all the part of the population, all the sections of the society will get access to employment opportunities, will get access to food grains, will get access to skilling, etc. So that is the first point. India has one of the largest population, so we need to ensure inclusive growth is achieved. Second, India is suffering from low development indicators, especially in social welfare measures. For example, malnutrition. Right, lot of children in case of India are not able to get sufficient access to nutrition. Right, poverty numbers are very high. Literacy rates, right, are also higher. Sanitation problems are there. Corruption, right, in terms of perception corruption index, we are very bad performance. So in terms of social indicators, India is lagging behind. We need, right, we need to improve upon these social indicators. India is also suffering from unsatisfactory growth indicators now. GDP growth rate, very recently we experienced a recession, we experienced a slowdown, unemployment rates are higher in case of India, etc. Right? So even under these parameters, right, we are lagging behind. And have a look at this. Although overall GDP, right, please understand, many of you simply say, sir, third point and fourth point are contradictory. Overall GDP growth rate for India, it is one of the largest, one of the fastest in the global market. India as a GDP has grown at a very faster pace, right, compared to many other countries in the world. Right, but this kind of a growth is not providing benefit to all the people. Very few people who are very rich are continuously becoming more rich, but the poor people continue to become more and more poor. More population, right, is poor in India. Very high number of people are classified as poor, so they are continuously remaining poor, whereas the rich people are becoming more and more richer in India, which means growth is becoming more exclusive rather than becoming inclusive. Right? All of you okay with these points? All of you okay with these points? Please do let me know. Sir, India is the first largest country in the world. Right? I don't know. First largest country? No. Right? India is not the first largest country. In terms of population, it is becoming largest. In terms of population, it is becoming largest. Okay? Done? Okay? Can we go forward now? Can we go forward? Right? So basically, this is the argument of why we should promote inclusive growth. Explain fourth point. My dear, India's growth rate is one of the largest in the world. Right? It is one of the fastest growing economies. Right? But the problem is, rich people have become more rich in the last couple of years. Poor people have remained poor only, which means growth is not inclusive. Growth is becoming more and more exclusive. That is a point. Okay. But men's cricket earns more viewership, TRP than women. Will this justify pay parity? My dear, please think of it. Please think historically. Right? Don't you think one of the reasons why men's cricket has become so famous in India, it is because of our social structure in India? I hope you understand. Right? Agreed. Men's cricket has more viewership. Why is that? Why is that? Right? Don't you think certain social issues, right, societal problems has led to more men participating in the cricket compared to women participating in the cricket? So again, do not view it only with one angle. There are so many angles to look at it. Okay, done. Okay, now what are the issues related to inclusive growth? What are the issues related to inclusive growth? What are the problems? What are the concerns regarding inclusive growth? First one, generally there is an argument that we should focus only on the growth. I hope you understand. We should focus only on the growth. Right? Many countries focus solely on the growth. But the argument is not focus only on the growth. World Bank says do not separate both growth and development. Do not separate both growth and development. Both are connected and you will have to achieve both of them simultaneously. I hope you understand my point here. Right? Many countries always focus only on the promotion of growth. But World Bank says do not separate both growth and development. Both are connected to each other. Try to promote both of them together, achieve both of them together. Right? Both are connected, both are not, right, unrelated. So both promotion should happen simultaneously. The number of poor must be reduced. Right? Please understand my point here. What is the point I'm trying to make? Let me give you a basic data point. During 1990s, they will say around 45 to 46% of the population in India was classified as poor. Understand this very carefully. In 1990s, around 45 to 46% of the population was classified as poor. And 2011, as per Tendulkar Committee, 21.9% of the population is classified as poor. Now, based on this data, based on this percentage, can you come to a conclusion that the number of poor people in India has fallen down by half of the population? Think of it. Right? Please be very careful, by the way. Please be very, very careful. In 1990s, 45 to 46% of the population was classified as poor. By 2011, 21.9% of the population is classified as poor. Based on only this data, can you come to a conclusion the number of poor people has become half, right, between 1990 to 2011? Right? Can you come to that conclusion? No. Please do not come to that conclusion. No. Why? Sir, why I should not come to that conclusion? Don't you think what was the base? That was the population. What was the base in 1990 is different compared to 2011. And don't you think between 1990 and 2011, population has increased by a very large number, in fact, in India. So I hope you understand that. Generally, that's a reason. Think of it. That's a reason. Generally, whenever they talk about poverty, they will use percentages. Right? The government, the institutes, etc., they will use percentages. Percentages look very nice. But based on this data, if government says poverty, BPL population, the percentage of poverty in India has reduced from 45 to 21.9%, does it actually mean the number of poor people has become reduced by half? It doesn't actually mean that. Doesn't actually mean that. So can I say, with reduction in the percentage of poverty, we should also focus and reduce the number of people who are actually classified as poor? Yes or no? What makes more sense to you? Just reducing the percentage of poor population, or also reducing the number of people who are classified as poor? Right? Don't you think we should target both of them? We should target both, right? Reduce the percentage, but along with that also ensure that the number of poor people are also very lesser in India, right? That is the argument. Okay, so have a look at this. Number of poor must also be reduced along with the reduction in the percentage of population which can be classified as poor. And moreover, please understand this. Moreover, please understand, how do you define poor? That is also very important. All of you okay? How do you define poor? Right? Who is a poor person in India? That is also very, very important. Because please understand, there is no universal definition for it. There is no universal definition. Some countries classify poverty based on per capita incomes. Is it okay? I'll repeat it again. Some countries classify poverty based on per capita income. Right? If a person is earning less than, let's say, 40% of per capita income, they will classify the person as poor. Whereas in case of India, the classification of poverty, in some of the cases, we have taken calorie consumption. In some cases, we have taken calorie consumption as a norm. In certain cases, we have taken expenditure as a norm to define whether a person is poor or not poor. Sir, what do you mean by that? For example, hypothetically, let's say the poverty line is 32 rupees. The poverty line is 32 rupees. If a person can spend more than 32 rupees, person is not classified as poor. If the person is spending less than 32 rupees per day, then the person is classified as poor. Again, please understand, right? The social issue faculty will cover poverty. I'm just giving you a glimpse of it. Right? Generally, the discussion is per person, but to be very precise, the discussion is not per person, it is generally based on family. That is, what is the expenditure of a family of 5 people? That is generally taken for 1 year to define whether the population is poor or not poor. But please think of it. Right? Don't you think if you have, let's say, a threshold of 32 rupees to classify population into poor and non-poor, don't you think 32 rupees is a very less threshold? Think of it. You say 32 rupees, more than that, not poor. Less than that, poor. But 32 rupees, don't you think that number is very less? Per person, it is very less number. Right? 32 rupees cannot get you a very good amount of food grains in India. Right? If you have 32 rupees, you cannot have stomach full lunch in India. So you're expecting one person to take care of their overall expenditure in one day, right, by 32 rupees, by using 32 rupees. So I hope you understand. If these kind of numbers are used, right, do you think reduction in poverty, right, does it always indicate more people are able to get sufficient food intake? Not necessarily. So that is the reason. That's the reason. How do we define poverty? Right? What is a reduction in percentage poverty? Right? Please look at them very carefully. Next one. Benefits of the reforms have not reached everyone. In case of India, historically, not just now, historically, hundreds of programs have been implemented by the government. Hundreds of schemes have been implemented by the government. But even today, why there are so many people who can be classified as poor? Multiple reasons are there. One reason could be a lot of corruption is there in the system. All of you okay? Lot of corruption is there in the system. Government is spending money, but it is not reaching the right beneficiary. Can I throw a current affairs article at you? Can I give you one current affairs example? PMJAY. Have you come across this scheme? Very recently, a lot of controversy has been created because of this. PMJAY, right? Mobile numbers, right? A lot of crores of rupees, right? Given to only these mobile numbers, etc., etc. Is it not leakage? Is it not corruption in the system? So I hope you understand, right? Implementation may not be proper. Lot of corruption is there. People are not aware of these initiatives. People are not educated enough to get access to these initiatives. People do not have right documentation to get the access to initiatives, etc., etc. So multiple reasons are there why, despite implementing so many reforms, even today large number of population remains poor in India. So social infrastructure has been neglected earlier. Social infrastructure has been neglected earlier, but now, especially for the last right 1.5 decade, we are promoting social infrastructure as well. Sir, any example of social infrastructure? Can I say healthcare sector is being promoted at least in the last 1.5 decade? Right? Education sector is being promoted. Sanitation is being promoted. So social infrastructure historically has been neglected, but now Because of the government awareness, government policies, we're actually promoting social infrastructure. Right? We also need to promote a lot of investment in research and development. That's a fact. We need to promote a lot of investment in research and development so that the kind of technology that is available in India, it is affordable. Sufficient amount of technology is available from Indian market itself. Our import dependence will come down, etc. Now, many of you ask me, sir, how R&D is connected to inclusive growth? I'll give you the connection. Many of you ask me, right, how R&D, research and development is connected to inclusive growth. Point number one, please listen to the sequence here and then tell me whether this is connected or not. One example. Can I say the population, that is especially working population, whether they will move out of poverty or not, it is dependent on the healthcare facility that they can get access to? Yes or no? If I'm a worker, right, one of the factor that will affect my productivity, will be my health. And if the healthcare is very costly, very costly, then don't you think large number of workers, large number of farmers will not be able to afford healthcare? And if they are not able to afford the healthcare, then basically what will happen to their productivity? Their productivity will come down. And what is one of the reason why healthcare is so costly in India? What is one of the reason why healthcare is so costly? Because we import a lot of machineries into India. For example, so how do you say we are importing machineries? If anybody, right, I'm pretty sure all of you have seen this. If you have gone to hospitals for a scan, if you go to hospital for a scan, the machinery that they're using, do you think those machineries are manufactured in India? Right? Do you think those machineries are manufactured? No, lot of these are imported into India. Lot of these technologies imported into India. A foreign company has invested lot of money. They have created a technology. They own the patent. We are forced to import. And because we are importing, the machinery cost is very high. Cost of technology becomes very high. Can I say healthcare becomes unaffordable? In fact, I can quote a current affairs example for this only. Right? Medicines. Yes or no? Very recently this is happening. In fact, today's newspaper, there is an article on this. Right? Couple of days ago, Government of India issued a directive to the doctors. Do not prescribe costly medicines. Prescribe generic medicines to the consumers. Right? And there was a huge scale opposition. And yesterday, that notification has been withdrawn by the government. That notification has been withdrawn by the government. Right? Today's Hindu newspaper, that article is there. Please read that. So I hope you understand my concern here. Right? There is a need to invest a lot of money in research and development so that we can have indigenous technology. We can have technology produced in the Indian market rather than being import dependent. And if we can have all of this, at least the pricing of the medicines, pricing of the services are expected to come down. And that will make it much more affordable to more population. That will directly have a contribution or an impact on productivity of the labor. So that is basically the argument here. Need to invest a lot of money in research and development. Okay, done. So these are some of the issues related to inclusive growth. Now, let me show you a mind map. Let me show a mind map to you. Right? What kind of reforms are being undertaken by the government? Again, this is just an illustration. You will have to read all these schemes. Please read all these schemes. Sir, from where should I read all these schemes? Next year, you will get India Yearbook. All of you know this, right? There's a book by the name of India Yearbook. Next year's India book, if you're writing next year exam, all the schemes information will be given. Right? From current affairs or from India Yearbook, whatever source you want to use it. But please read these kind of schemes. For example, for promotion of employment in India, Skill India Initiative. Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, production linked incentive, Make in India initiative for promotion of industrialization, right? Promotion of industrialization, Make in India, Startup India, PLI, for promotion of financial inclusion, right? Atal Pension Yojana, Pradhana Mantri Jeevan Jyoti Yojana, Pradhana Mantri Suraksha Bima Yojana, Pradhana Mantri Janadhan Yojana, right? I can give you hundreds of examples for financial inclusion. For protection of environment, what about having net zero emission target by 2070? What about net zero emission target 2030 for railways? What about promotion of electric vehicles, promotion of renewable energy, protection of environment? Right? Rural development, BharatNet initiative, under which we are going to provide a high-speed broadband connectivity to all the villages in India. Right? Aspirational districts, under which we are promoting infrastructure development in more than 100 districts in India. Right? Annapurna scheme, Manrega scheme to address poverty, or National Food Security Act, right? Or Pradhana Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, or let's say housing initiatives which have been launched by Government of India, right, to address the issue of rural development or poverty issue, etc. So I hope you understand. I hope you understand. This is just an illustration, right? To prove that government is promoting growth also, government is promoting development as well, right? This is a proof of it. This is a proof of it. Economic side we have discussed. We have discussed PLI. All of you okay with this? Anybody in the classroom who says, sir, you have not discussed a PLI? We have discussed a production linked incentive. We have discussed a Make in India. We have discussed a Startup India. We have discussed MSME reforms, right? Skill India initiative, Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, right? Etc. Etc. So we have discussed so many initiatives in the classroom, right? Basically related to economics. Now, many of you are asking, what is this? What is that? My dear, you read it. BharatNet, aspirational districts, Annapurna, etc. These are more of a social reforms. These are more of a social issues. You will get the notes, and you'll cover all of these when social issue topics are discussed. Okay, done. Okay. That is a discussion regarding the concept of right, inclusive growth as well as employment. Anybody has got any kind of a doubt, please do let me know. Can we make a chart in the exam? If sufficient number of let's say if there is sufficient number of words available for you, you can draw it. But simply do not make a chart, write points. Please write points as well. Okay. Sir, how will we get weekly news articles? My dear, read, right? You start making compilations. My duty is to provide you hand-holding services. Hand-holding means I should tell you what to read, what not to read. I cannot literally come to you every day and start making you read newspapers. The agenda, right? What was the objective of giving you these kind of compilations? I wanted you to understand that there is a world beyond Hindu. Focus on the world beyond Hindu as well. For example, some of you are asking any article in Hindu newspaper which was relevant today. And I hope you know we have been doing this exercise for 1 month now. For 1 month, we have been doing this. That is every day morning I wake up, I read Hindu, come to you and I tell you what important economic articles are there in Hindu. Please read it. Now, don't you think after 1 month, right, you should start doing that on your own? Start doing that on your own. Okay. Okay. So, how to know what to read, what not to read? My dear, it's like asking, sir, how do I ride a bicycle? Right? It's like that. Right? Don't you think over a period of time, when you start reading, you will start understanding which article is important, which article is not important? I hope you understand. There is no universal formula. You're asking me for a formula. A plus B whole square. That's a formula that you cannot apply for reading newspapers. You will have to read. Only then you will understand, okay, this article is relevant, this is not relevant. And over a period of time, that's a skill set. You will acquire it. But you will have to start reading, right? You'll have to start reading it. Only then you will understand. Okay. Okay. Is it okay if I'm reading a Hindu Patna edition? Doesn't matter. Which edition you're reading, doesn't matter. Read. That is more important. Okay. What was the role of IMF? IMF, I'll come to that. I've not yet discussed IMF. Okay. What is the idea of a Stand Up India? Stand Up India was basically an initiative where Government of India promoted the startups from right certain sections of the society. For example, women, right? We promoted actually access to institutional loans for women entrepreneurs under Stand Up India. We actually promoted access to institutional credit for right enterprises owned by SCs and STs under Stand Up India. Okay. Not able to complete 15 marker question in 11 minutes. Any suggestion? Keep on practicing. Keep on practicing. It's a matter of practice. Initially, it is difficult. I know. Initially, it is difficult. Once you keep on practicing over a period of time, you will get the right. You will get to know how to write the answers. Practice, more practice. Right. That's it. Nothing more than that. Okay, what is the best newspaper or economy? Right, please understand there is no best newspaper. Read one additional newspaper. The first class also I told the same thing. Today also I'll tell the same thing. Read one additional newspaper apart from Hindu. Which one entirely left to you? Which one is entirely left to you? Okay. Okay. What is spiraling food shock, my dear? Spiraling means continuous. Continuously it is happening without any control. Okay, done. So let me take a break. Let me take a break. I'll restart the discussion at 8:05. I'll restart the discussion at 8:05. Okay, please join back at 8:05. IMF, right? In the had a discussion. National Monetary. Am I audible? Please do let me know. Done. Thanks a lot. So next, last concept that we'll be discussing will be the concept of IMF, International Monetary Fund. Okay, IMF, International Monetary Fund. Now, what are the important points? Point number one, IMF, right, basically is an outcome of Bretton Woods Conference. Now, what is a Bretton Woods Conference? Do you remember earlier we have had a discussion? When we discussed WTO, we had a discussion regarding this. What was the discussion? During the Second World War. During the Second World War, there was a concern regarding international trade, infrastructure development, etc. And that is the precise reason why in one of the cities in USA, Bretton Woods cities, there was a conference which was conducted. And during the conference, it was decided that we should set up International Trade Organization, we should set up right IMF, and we should set up right the International Monetary Fund. International Trade Organization was supposed to promote trade, but because the consensus was not obtained, we were not able to establish ITO. And that's the reason, right? We had a GATT agreement. Then in 1995, we have established a WTO. Then second, World Bank. What is the role of the World Bank? The role of the World Bank is to basically provide funding for the growth, for infrastructure development. Then we have IMF, International Monetary Fund. What is the role of IMF? IMF takes care of exchange rate stability across the countries. IMF takes care if there is a BOP crisis in any of the member countries in the IMF, right? In the grouping of IMF. So that is the reason why IMF is also referred to as a Bretton Woods twin. Bretton Woods twin, because two organizations, World Bank and IMF, were actually established. Hence, this is called as a Bretton Woods twin. Bretton Woods twin. Now, how many members are there in the IMF? 190 countries, 190 members are there as a part of IMF. The headquarters of IMF is located in Washington, D.C. Let me ask you a simple question. Where is the headquarters of WTO located? Let me see how many of you remember. Where is the headquarters HQ of WTO, World Trade Organization, located? Geneva, Geneva, Switzerland. Geneva, Switzerland. Right, so IMF headquarters is located in Washington, D.C. Now, what are the functions? What are the functions of right the International Monetary Fund? Point number one. it will provide loans to member countries. For example, have you come across IMF providing loan to Sri Lanka? IMF providing loan to Pakistan. Right? So there are many countries. In fact, India in the past, I'll repeat it, India in the past has actually provided or has actually taken loans from IMF. Today we are not taking any loans. Right? Post 1993, we have not taken loans from IMF. We have repaid the loans before 2000. So after 2000, no loans, no repayment to IMF. So it will provide loan to member countries. And it should be very clear to you, sir, why will they provide loans? For example, is Pakistan facing a BOP crisis now? Is Sri Lanka facing a BOP crisis? Has it faced a BOP crisis in the past? Were they running out of the forex reserves to pay for their loans, etc., etc.? So whenever these kind of crises will happen in the member countries, they will take the loans from IMF. Second, they will also monitor the policies of the governments. They will also monitor the policy of the government. Why? Can the policy of the government have an impact on exchange rate or not? Let me know. Can the policy of the government have an impact on exchange rate of a country? Of course, yes. And right through these kind of policies, can the governments manipulate their exchange rates? Yes, they can manipulate it. So that is the reason they will also monitor the policies of the member countries. They will keep on giving inputs to the member countries. Third one, give recommendations to the member countries regarding their policies. And the fourth one, they will publish reports. Please remember the names of the report. They can be asked in the prelims. Do not read these reports. I repeat, do not read these reports. UPSC will not ask you the details of the reports. But the famous question is, which of the following authority publishes the report? That kind of a question has been asked. The IMF will publish a World Economic Outlook, Global Financial Stability Report, Fiscal Monitor, Regional Economic Outlook, etc. So these are the names of the reports which are published by International Monetary Fund. Now next point. What is the structure of IMF? What is the structure of IMF? Now if you search for the structure of IMF in the Google, you'll be surprised to see the complicated structure of IMF. They'll give a very nice picture with so many arrow marks to represent IMF structure. My recommendation, don't by heart it. Please do not use that structure. I'll give you a much more simplified version of it. Remember this. Please remember this. Now, IMF, the highest decision-making body of IMF is called as a Board of Governors. I'll repeat. The highest decision-making body of IMF is called as Board of Governors. Now, who are present in the Board of Governors? All the member countries are represented in the Board of Governors. And generally the representation is done right by two members. Each of the member countries will have two representations. That is one, the finance minister. Finance minister will act as a governors in the board of directors, and the RBI governor, right? The RBI governor of India will act as alternative governor. Is the logic okay? Right, from India, there are two representatives in the IMF Board of Governors. One, finance minister. The finance minister will act as a governor in the Board of Governors, and the RBI governor will act as alternative governor, right, in the Board of Governors. But please understand, the Board of Governors cannot meet and take care of day-to-day activities of IMF. Right? They will not be able to take care of day-to-day activities, day-to-day functioning of IMF. That is the precise reason they will delegate some of their work to one more authority called as Executive Board. And Executive Board will have a composition of 24 members. And the most important work of the Executive Board is to take care of the day-to-day activities of IMF. Day-to-day activities. Now, what kind of activities are we talking about? Please have a look at it. The Board of Governors will decide which member country should be removed from IMF. Board of Governors should decide which country should be allowed to become a member of IMF. What should be the quota of member countries? I'll come to quota, have patience. What should be the quota of member countries? What should be the STR? Again, STR will discuss separately sometime. Give me some time. How much should be the STR allocation, right, to these member countries, etc. So all of these decisions are taken by Board of Governors. And Executive Board, the Executive Board, which will have totally 24 members. Somebody is asking, sir, 24 from each of the countries? No, my dear. All the countries put together, 24 members are appointed. So the Executive Board will discuss all the day-to-day activities of IMF. For example, to evaluate the policies of member countries, to recommend policy changes to the member countries, right, etc. So that is the role of the Executive Board. So Board of Governors is different, Executive Board is different. For example, do you remember WTO structure? Let me see. Do you remember the structure of WTO? What is the structure of WTO? We had a ministerial conference, correct? The highest decision making body was a ministerial conference. And I said, ministerial conference generally meets once every 2 years. But there is one more authority by the name of General Council, which will take care of day-to-day activities of a WTO. Apply the same logic here as well. Apply the same logic, right? The Board of Governors, they cannot meet everyday basis. They cannot keep on taking care of day-to-day activities of IMF. So what they've done is they have appointed one more authority, that is Executive Board, and this Executive Board will take care of day-to-day activities of IMF, right? So that is basically the composition. Now next point, the Board of Governors will receive advice, will receive recommendations from two more authorities. Please remember, one is called as a Development Committee, second one is called as a International Monetary and Finance Committee. One is a Development Committee and the other one is called as a International Monetary and Finance Committee. Now, in case of IMFC, right, there are 24 member countries. India is a member of this. That should be the concept for you. Do not buy out all the 24 countries, not needed. India is a member of IMFC. Can you see this? India is a member of IMFC. India is a member of Development Committee. So whether it is IMFC or Development Committee, India is a member to this. And these, right, that is IMFC as well as Development Committee, they will meet regularly and along with international agencies, right, international agencies such as World Bank, right, such as right, other agencies, etc. Along with, right, these agencies, they will keep on participating in these meetings, and they'll keep on giving inputs to these agencies, right? So IMFC has 24 members. India is a part of it. IMFC meets twice in a year, right? The Development Committee has 25 members, right? They'll keep on meeting regularly whenever these right, meetings are called for by the member countries, and they'll keep on giving inputs to, right, these international agencies. So World Bank will be present in a Development Committee as well as IMFC. Right? Many other global agencies will keep on participating and keep on providing inputs, right, for these other global agencies. Right? This is how, right, the structure of IMS is relevant for you, right, for UPSC. Do not by heart that complicated structure. Right? Many of you are asking, what is that structure? You can check it in Google. It's a very, very complicated structure. For GS paper 3, you do not require that. You simply require this structure. Right? We have a Board of Governors. Right? Below Board of Governors, Executive Board is there. The Board of Governors is the most important body. They'll keep on getting advice from two different authorities. One is a Development Committee. Second one is IMFC. In case of a Development Committee, 25 members are there. India is a party to that. In case of IMFC, 24 members are there. India is a party to this. So you simply remember this, more than sufficient. Right? Simply remember this, more than sufficient. Do not complicate the things. Right? Many of you will try to do a detailed study on all of them. These are very complex things. So please do not waste your time. UPSC is not going to ask you the details of it. Okay, done. Next, what is right? What is the role of IMF? I said one of the very important role of IMF is basically to provide loans to member countries. Do you remember that? Right? They will provide loans to member countries. So point number one, if IMF wants to provide loans to member countries, does it not mean IMF should have funds in the first place? All of you okay with this? Right, let me know. If IMF is going to provide loans to member countries, does it not mean IMF will require funds in the first place? So point number one, what are the sources of funds for IMF? Let's study that. Second, if IMF is providing loan to member countries, generally there are two types of loans. One, the loan where no interest rates are charged. No interest rates are charged. Why? Please think of it. If you are giving loan to an African country, right? Why I'm taking African countries, right? Because a lot of these poor countries come from Africa. So if you're giving loan to an African country, don't you think, right, the African country which is already poor, if you impose a certain charges, interest on the loans, that will become burden for these African countries? All of you okay with this? Right? So the argument is simple. Some of the countries which are, right, least developed countries, which are very, very low developed countries, we should provide them the loans without any charges, without any interest, provide them, right, at a 0%. But on the other hand, imagine USA will take a loan from IMF. Great Britain will take a loan from IMF. Japan will take a loan from IMF. Germany will take a loan from IMF. Should you provide them loans at 0% rate of interest? Is it fair? No, you should charge them rate of interest. So I hope you understand the loans which are given. There are different types of loans. I'll give you a list. Have some patience. I'll give you a list. Different types of loans are given, but these loans can be categorized into two. One, these are called as concessional loans, where interest rate is not charged. Second one is non-concessional, where interest rate is charged. Concessional loans, where interest rate is not charged, this is available only to poor countries. It is available only to poor countries. USA cannot take a concessional loan. Why? USA is a developed country. Right? That is the second point. Third very important point, imagine IMF is giving a loan to Sri Lanka or Pakistan. There is a BOP crisis, the IMF is giving a loan. Now, don't you think if the economic situation is already very poor, very concerning economic situation, IMF should impose certain conditions so that the economic situation will improve? Think of it. Does it make sense or not? Right? Imagine your IMF. I want to take a loan from you. Right? My economic situation is already very poor. Right? Government is incurring a lot of expenditure. Fiscal deficit is very high. The loan repayment is very high. I'm providing a lot of subsidies to the economy, etc. At that point of time, I will come take a loan from you. Right? Don't you think you should ensure that through your conditions, you should ensure that my situation will improve? Otherwise, you will give a loan, I will use it to provide subsidies. Can that happen? I hope you understand. If you give without any condition, if you give right the loans without any conditions like this, I will take the loan from you, I will use it to provide subsidy. Right? I will use it for other wasteful expenditure. Then my situation will deteriorate rather than improving. That is the reason whenever loans are provided, IMF will impose conditions. IMF imposes conditions. What kind of conditions? IMF might simply say, you are incurring lot of expenditure, reduce your expenditure. Reduce your expenditure. You are providing lot of subsidies, cut down on your subsidies. Right? Impose more and more taxes so that you will be able to collect more revenue, etc. So conditions are generally imposed by IMF so that the member country will improve its financial position. But there is a criticism for this also. There is a criticism. Right? Imagine I am taking a loan from IMF, and because of the condition, I will implement certain policies. Is it not against the sovereignty of a country? Think of it. Is it not against the sovereignty of a country? Of course, yes. And second point, because IMF says I will have to improve my revenue position, I will impose more taxes on petrol. Right? I'm connecting into current affairs. I will impose more taxes on petrol. I will impose more taxes on, right, let's say fuels. I'll impose more taxes on electricity. Tell me, is it not going to create a more burden for the population or not? Correct? Is it not going to become a more burden for a population? Of course, yes. Sir, any current affairs example? In case of Pakistan, the government of Pakistan increased the taxes on petrol. They increased the taxes on petrol, right? There was a term called as petrol bomb. Right? Please understand, there's a term called as petrol bomb. What is this petrol bomb? Petrol bomb was discussed in the context of government of Pakistan increasing the tax rate on petrol fuel. Can be asked by UPSC, very misleading term, very misleading term. Right? Bomb means many of you will think atomic bomb, that bomb, this bomb. Petrol bomb was discussed in the context of government of Pakistan imposing very high tax rate on petrol. Right? That is the reason it was called as a petrol bomb. But think of it. No doubt government by imposing more taxes aims to collect more taxes. Tax revenue should increase. Revenue position of the government should increase. That is the objective. But don't you think a country which is already suffering, people are already suffering, unemployment rate is increasing, etc. In that country, you're imposing more taxes. Is it not a burden on the consumer? So that is a criticism. That's a criticism. Right? IMF is intervening in the sovereignty. It is affecting sovereignty. It is going to create more burden for the common man. But come back to the point here. Come back to the point. Point number one was, if IMF wants to provide loans, they should have source, they should have funds. All of you okay with this? If IMF wants to provide loans, they should have funds in the first place. So what are the sources of funds for IMF? Right? What kind of money is available for IMF to provide loans? There are three sources of funds. One is quota system. We'll discuss it. Just give me a minute. Second one is called as a multilateral borrowing. Third one is called as a bilateral borrowing. Okay, first one is quotas. Second one is multilateral borrowing. Third one is bilateral borrowing. We'll discuss all the three individually. Most important one is the concept of quotas. But have a look at this. Putting together all the three resources. Look at the number. Putting together all the three resources, can I say, right, IMF has a huge amount of funds which are available, using which up to $1 trillion worth of loans can be issued by IMF. Up to 1 trillion. Right, up to 1 trillion worth of loans can be issued by IMF. Now, what is this quota? What is this, right, multilateral borrowing? What is this bilateral borrowing? Let's go point by point. Right, point number one. What is this quota? Quota represents, this is a definition. Listen carefully. Quota represents what is the relative position of a country in the global market. I will repeat the statement here. What is the relative position of a country in the global market? Quotas are nothing but a particular number which is assigned to a country, and this number represent what is the position of India in the global market. Sir, how do they determine that number? They will use a formula. Please remember the parameters, not the formula. I'll give you the formula as well. But I would recommend do not complicate, do not remember the formula, remember the parameters. Right? A, GDP, B, openness, C, economic variability, and D, international reserve. Simply by heart them. Do not do a detailed study. Not at all needed for GS paper 3. Do not worry, what is economic variability, sir? How do they calculate it, sir? Not needed for GS paper 3. We can spend hours and hours. I can tell you how they do that. But for GS paper, not at all needed. Only for optional paper, somewhat it is required. Now, how do they calculate a quota? For example, they'll say India's quota is a 2.6. Right? They'll say India's quota is a 2.6. Right? India has a voting right of 2.6%. Right? How do they calculate it? There is a formula. There's a formula. Right? The formula goes like this: A into 0.5 plus, right? A is this one. I'll use a short form only so that you can understand. Right? Small alphabets. B into 0.3 plus C into 0.15 plus D into 0.05. This is a formula. And right, to make it much more complicated, there is one more term, compression factor. CF, compression factor. Now, please look at the formula. Do you think UPSC will ask you the calculation of this formula? Let me know. Do you think UPSC is going to ask you, right, how this quota is calculated? Prove it to me. If you say yes, sir, they can ask you, my dear, check last 15 years question paper. Forget about 5 years. Check last 15 years question paper and find out if anywhere UPSC has asked this question. Answer is no. That's the reason I said do not complicate. Right? We can discuss everything, but is it required for UPSC? Absolutely no. Right? Already many of you say, sir, economics is so difficult. If I start discussing how economic variability is calculated, right? What is this compression factor? How it is calculated? Then trust me, most of you will decide not to read economics. That is GS paper 3. So this is not required. But what is important? Using this formula, every member country quota is calculated. All of you are okay? Right? Every member country's quota will be calculated. And this is not difficult to understand. If you use this formula, please think of it and do let me know which member country do you think will have the highest quota. I hope you understand. Which member country will have the highest quota? Right? Obviously, it will be USA. All of you okay? Obviously, it will be USA. US's quota is more than 16%. US's quota is more than 16%. Right? And please remember why that is important. Generally, for important decision making under IMF, in IMF, you require at least 85% votes. I'll repeat the statement. Generally, for important decision making in IMF, for example, Board of Governors, when they want to take important decisions, you require 85% votes. And if USA has a 16% plus votes, because quota will also have an impact on your voting right. Quota will determine what is your voting right. In that case, can I say USA will effectively have veto power there? Think of it. In cases where you require 85% votes, right? USA has more than 16% voting right, which means automatically USA will control, right, what is supposed to be the decision of Board of Governors. Because if USA will vote against it, you will not get 85%. That is the reason USA plays such a dominant role, such an important role in these kind of international organizations. Okay, done. Right, so GDP, openness, economic variability, international reserves, these are the parameters which are considered. This formula will be used and they will give you what is the quota of a country. And based on this, at least now, is it okay if I say quota is a number? It is a number which is allocated for every member country, and the number represents what is the relative position of a country in the global market. That is called as quota. And based on the quota, please remember this, based on the quota, member countries will have to contribute to IMF. I'll repeat the statement. Based on the quota, the member countries will have to contribute to IMF. The country which has a higher quota will contribute more money, and a country with a lower quota will contribute lesser amount of money to IMF. So the first source of the fund for IMF and the most important source of the fund for IMF is in fact quotas itself. And now, because you have contributed, please remember this, because you have contributed, you are also eligible to get loans from IMF. Now, how much loans you will get from IMF, that is also determined based on quotas itself. Is it okay? Right, I'll repeat it again. Right, quota will determine how much you will contribute, and the quota will also determine how much loans you will get from IMF. Right, so quota is the most important component under the IMF. Second, multilateral borrowing. Third, bilateral borrowing. Now, before I go forward, please remember this. Quota is referred to as the first line of defense. Multilateral borrowing is referred to as the second line of defense. And bilateral borrowing is called as third line of defense. I'll repeat it again. Quota is referred to as a first line of defense. Multilateral borrowing is called as a second line of defense. And bilateral borrowing is referred to as a third line of defense. Sir, why? Why this is called as a first line, second line, and third line? Let me give you a very basic idea. Right? Let's say, you have certain amount of income. This month, your expenditure is more than your income. Now, can I say, first thing you will do is, you will borrow from your friends. All of you okay? Right? Because your expenditure is higher, you will borrow from your friends. Now, right, even after borrowing from your friends, right, the money is not sufficient. Next, what? You will go to your parents. Especially your father will look at you very angrily, right? And your father will scold you, your father will criticize you, your father will bring your past in front of you, right? He'll say, I told you 5 years ago itself, you will have to save money, you will have to control your expenditure, etc., etc. But after that, they will give you money. Now, can I simply say, right, if your expenditure is more than, right, your income, you have approached your friends, that is your first line of defense. Then after that, you have approached your parents, that will be your second line of defense. So I hope you understand what is this concept of first line and second line. So there are already funds available with IMF. The funds are already available with IMF in the form of quota. They will use these funds to provide loans to member countries. But what if there is a pandemic? Think of it. What if there is a pandemic? During pandemic, large number of member countries would want to borrow from IMF because they are incurring BOP crisis. Then the quota amount may not be sufficient for IMF. Now there is one more option available, multilateral borrowing. There are member countries under IMF who have pledged, who have guaranteed to IMF, if you require additional funds, we will provide to you in the form of multilateral borrowing. Now, let's say multilateral borrowing is used by IMF, but that amount is also not sufficient because the crisis is deepening. More member countries want to borrow from IMF. In such cases, there is one more option available for IMF. They will activate bilateral borrowing, borrow under bilateral borrowing. That is basically the concept of, right, the sources of funds, right? Now, what is this new arrangements to borrow? What is this, right, bilateral borrowing arrangements, right? New arrangements to borrow is basically nothing but multilateral borrowing. Is the logic okay? New arrangements to borrow is nothing but multilateral borrowing and bilateral borrowing agreements. So new arrangements to borrow, 40 members of IMF. I repeat, 40 members of IMF have come together. India is one of them, by the way. India is a party for new arrangements to borrow as well as bilateral borrowing agreements. So, in case of, right, the new arrangements to borrow, 40 members have come together and they have guaranteed, they have promised IMF that they have pooled the funds. How much funds? 361 STR, billion STR. I'll come to SDR, have patience. Or else $521 billion. IMF can borrow from this grouping of new arrangements to borrow. Any problem in understanding this? Let me know right now. Do not complicate it. 40 members have come together. All the 40 members countries put together, they have promised that if IMF wants to borrow from this grouping, they are willing to provide $521 billion to IMF. That's a basic idea. Apart from this, there is also, right, borrowing agreement here, bilateral borrowing agreement. In bilateral borrowing agreements, right, understand this, again 40 members have come together and put together, they have offered to provide loans up to $193 billion to IMF. So this is basically the different source of funds IMF can borrow from. Any difficulty? Do not complicate it. I'll repeat it again. Please do not complicate it. I'll simply give you the argument here. In the first case, 40 members are there, and all the 40 members are saying, if IMF wants from us, we are willing to provide $521 billion. In the second agreement, right, again 40 members are there. All the 40 members put together, they are promising IMF can borrow $193 billion from us. Right? That is basically different sources of funds which are available, right? The sources which are available, right, for IMF. Any problem? Can we go forward? Can we go forward? I don't find difference in these two. My dear, there is a difference. There is a lot of difference. You don't worry. There is a lot of difference. Do you think IMF will directly borrow from, right, the bilateral borrowing agreements? Tell me now. Do you think IMF will directly borrow from bilateral borrowing agreements? No. First, they will exhaust, right, multilateral. First, they will exhaust multilateral. Then they will go to bilateral borrowing agreements. Right? And have a look at this. Bilateral borrowing agreements was signed very, very recently. And what could be the reason? It was revised very, very recently. What could be the reason? Pandemic. Pandemic was actually the reason. Right? Pandemic was the reason why, right, the bilateral borrowing agreements was actually revised very recently. Why? The argument is, during pandemic, the IMF might receive lot of requests from the member countries which are facing BOP crisis. And that was the reason why the bilateral borrowing agreements was actually revised recently. So I hope you understand, right? Different sources of funds are there. You don't worry how many member countries are there, right? Which is the list of the 40 countries, etc. You don't worry. That is all not required for GS paper. Simply remember, different sources of funds are there. IMF already has quotas. If they require, they can borrow under multilateral borrowing, and after that, they can borrow under bilateral borrowing. Simply remember this, more than sufficient. Okay, done. Next. Now, what is this STR? What is this STR? STR stands for Special Drawing Rights. Point number one. STR refers to Special Drawing Rights. STRs are reserve assets which have been created by IMF, and STRs are issued to member countries. I will repeat the statement. STRs are the reserve assets which are created by IMF, and these are distributed, right, to member countries. And although, please understand, although in the newspaper generally you come across IMF giving loans in terms of dollars, literally, right, think of this, literally speaking, IMF doesn't provide loans in the form of the dollars, rather they will provide loans in the form of STRs only. That is, IMF has created a currency. Although you cannot use the SDRs in India to conduct trade, it is basically a kind of currency which has been created by IMF, which shall be used only by the member countries, which shall be issued only to the member countries. Now you will ask me, sir, what is the use of the currency? IMF, right, understand this, IMF will tell you what is the value of 1 unit of SDR. I repeat, IMF, based on a calculation, will tell you what is the value of 1 unit of STR. Let's say hypothetically, you have, that is India, let's say has $100. Simple, I'm sorry, 100 units of STR. right? In fact, in terms of lakhs of STRs India has, and the allocation will keep on changing. Do not buy it. Remember the percentages, right? So understand this very carefully. India, let's say, has 100 STR which they have received from IMF. What is the use of this 100 STR? Imagine you have taken a loan. Imagine you have taken a loan from IMF. You can use the STR to repay the loan. Very simple. Imagine you have taken a loan from IMF. You can use the STR to repay the loan to the IMF. Sir, what if I don't have any loans from IMF? IMF will tell you what is the value of one STR. For example, let's say today, value of one STR is equal to $2. I repeat, let's say hypothetically, value of one STR is equal to $2. Now, if India has 100 STRs, can I say they can sell 100 STRs and get $2? Sorry, $200, not $2, $200. Sir, who will purchase these STRs? Right? They can sell it to IMF. They can sell it to USA. They can sell it to other countries. So basically, these STRs are reserve assets which have been created by IMF, issued to all the member countries. Every member country has STRs. And what is the importance of STR? If you have taken a loan from IMF, you can use the STR to repay the loan, or else you can transfer these STRs to other member countries and get currencies from them. Right? They can get currencies from them. In fact, IMF facilitates transactions of selling and buying STRs between member countries. Always remember, countries are allowed to hold STR. Companies are not allowed to hold STR. For example, can Infosys purchase STRs? Not allowed. Can Tesla purchase STRs? Not allowed. Can Amazon company purchase STRs? Not allowed. Can government of India have STRs? Yes. Can UK's government have STRs? Can US government own STRs? Answer is yes. So member countries' governments are allowed to hold STR. They can basically purchase them and pay dollars or other currencies. They can purchase STRs and pay in currencies like this. That is the importance of STRs. Now, based on this information, please tell me, does it make sense to keep STRs as a part of forex reserves? Think of it. Right? Does it make sense now to keep STR as a part of forex reserves? Right? In fact, that is correct. If you go back to RBI chapter, banking chapter, open that chapter, I have written STR as a part of the forex reserves itself. Right? And in case of India, right, I'll come back to this, don't worry. Have a look at this. In case of India, right, this table is from Economic Survey. What is the total forex reserves? What is the total forex reserves? This is the number, right? Do not by heart the number, of no relevance, right? Absolutely no relevance. But can I say forex reserves basically consist of four components. One is foreign currency assets. Second one is gold reserves held by RBI. Third one is SDR. Correct? Third one is STR, special drawing rights. And the fourth one is RTP, that is reserve tranche. I'll come to this. So remember this, STRs are reserve assets which have been created by IMF, allocated to member countries. And what is the value of 1 unit of STR? IMF will decide it. IMF will decide it. And IMF will calculate what is the value of one STR by considering what is the value of these five currencies. Please remember this. What is the value of these five currencies? And by the way, all these five currencies are international currencies now. All these five currencies are international currency. Right? Why are they considering only five currencies, sir? Why not Indian rupee, sir? Please tell me. Is Indian rupee an international currency? Let me know. Is Indian rupee an international currency? Right? How many of you are under the false impression that Indian rupee is accepted throughout the globe? Throughout the globe doesn't matter. No, my dear. No. Right? Indian rupee, we are promoting internationalization, but even today, only a small percentage Only around 2% of the total transactions in the forex market actually are done in rupees. Only 2%. Only 2%. Right? A large number of these forex transactions are done in terms of dollars. Yuan is becoming famous now. Right? Pound is already famous. So there is a basket of currency which is used by IMF to determine what is the value of 1 unit of ESTR. This is right, the fixed criteria. Please remember this. This is fixed. And Chinese yuan, that is renminbi. Another name is renminbi. So Chinese yuan, that is renminbi, was introduced in this list of currencies very, very recently. Right? It was introduced very recently. Post 2016, it has been introduced in the basket of currencies. Done? Can we go forward now? STRs can be converted into currencies. Value of STR is notified by IMF. Value of one STR is based on basket of currencies. This is a basket of currencies. IMF allocates STRs, right, in proportion of quotas of member countries. Okay, so these are certain important points. Please remember. Next one is RTP. Right, what is this RTP? Reserve tranche position. RTP is nothing but reserve tranche position. Now, what is this concept of, right? What is this concept of reserve tranche position? Let me explain. Reserve tranche position means, point number one, every member country has to contribute to IMF under quota system. Any problem with the point number one? I'll repeat it. Every member country is allocated certain quota, and based on the quota, they will have to contribute to IMF. This I will call it as IMF holding. IMF holding means how much money you have contributed under quota to IMF. Point number two. Now imagine a country wants to borrow from IMF. Imagine a country wants to borrow from IMF. So different types of borrowing facilities are available. There is one type of a borrowing facility that is available, which is called as a reserve tranche position. What is this reserve tranche position? Imagine as per quota calculations. As per quota calculations, right? Imagine you are contributing $100 billion to IMF. As per quota calculation, the IMF holding is $100 billion. Right? You have contributed $100 billion to IMF. Out of this, generally up to 25%. Out of this, generally up to 25%, you are allowed to borrow from IMF. I'll repeat the statement. Imagine as per quota calculation, you will have to contribute $100 billion to IMF. But out of this $100 billion, up to 25%, you are allowed to borrow, but without paying any charges and without meeting any conditions. Without paying any charges, without meeting any conditions. This facility is called as reserve tranche position. Any difficulty? Right, let me know. Any difficulty? Sir, why only 25%? My dear, that was a consensus that was taken. Right, why only 20? Why not 100%? If you contribute 100 crore, take back 100 crore, where is the money available for IMF? Think that also, na? Please think that also. Sir, why 25? Why not 100 crore? Why not $100 billion? If you contribute 100 billion and if you borrow 100 billion, where is the money available for IMF to lend for somebody else? Right? So I'll repeat it again. Listen to me very carefully. Whatever is your contribution, I will call it as IMF holding. Out of this IMF holding, what should be your contribution? Out of that, up to 25%, you are allowed to borrow from IMF without meeting any condition, without meeting any charges, without paying any charges to IMF. This is called as a reserve tranche position. Now, what is the definition here? Right? This is a definition given by IMF. Let me clarify that. It is the difference between IMF holding of a country and the designated IMF quota of a country. Now let's say you contributed $100 billion as per quota system. As per quota system, you contributed 100 billion. But out of that, 25% you will borrow. Right? The quota is actually 100 billion. But out of that, 25% you will borrow. Means what? You will borrow $25 billion, right, from IMF now. Please tell me, out of $100 billion, if you borrow 25 billion, can I say your holdings with IMF has fallen down to $75 billion? All of you are okay? Your holdings with IMF has fallen down to 75. So what was the quota? What was the quota? Quota is 100 billion, but holdings is 75 billion. Difference between the holding and quota, can I call this as a reserve tranche position? I'll repeat it. If you borrow 25 billion, your holdings will fall down to 75. Your quota is 100, your holding is 75. Difference between the quota and holding, can I call this as a reserve tranche position? Of course, yes. Right, that is the definition that is given for RTP. Any member country can borrow this at any point of time. Any point of time they can simply borrow without any condition, without paying any charges. Now tell me, if this facility is available to India at any point of time, should I be counting this as part of forex reserves or not? Yes or no? If this facility is available to India at any point of time, they can take this at any point of time. Should I not be counting this as a part of forex reserves? Yes. Look at the table now. Please look at the table. Right. So whenever you calculate forex reserves, right, reserve tranche position, RTP, reserve tranche position, is also counted as a part of forex reserves, because you can take these dollars at any point of time. Right, so this is a facility called as RTP. There is one more name for this. RTP is also referred to as a gold tranche. RTP is also referred to as a gold tranche. Gold tranche, right? RTP or a gold tranche. Okay, so every member country needs to contribute the share in terms of quota to IMF. Part of this can be withdrawn by the member countries without paying any service charges or without following any conditions of IMF. This facility is called as a reserve tranche. Now, apart from this, what are the other facilities? What are the other facilities, right, through which they can borrow from IMF? I'll give you two tables here. My recommendation, simply by heart tables. Do not worry about the details of it. Why? Point number one. Let me know. Do you think every member country will require same kind of assistance from IMF? Please think very carefully. Do you think every member country will require same kind of assistance from IMF? No. Will they take, right, same amount of loans? No. Are they facing same kind of economic situation? No. Will they take loan for the same duration? Again, answer is no. So I hope you understand what I'm trying to convey to you people is very simple. There are more than 10 types of loans which are issued by IMF to member countries. Conditions for all the 10 are not same. The interest rate for all the same, all the 10 of them, not the same. The duration of the loans for all the 10, not the same. That is the precise reason, right? That is the precise reason I'm saying, do not complicate all of this. I can see many of you are commenting, I want to understand this in detail. I know you want to understand. Go to IMF website, read it, become more confused. Then look at the question which is asked by UPSC. You will realize you have simply wasted your time. So do not complicate these things. Keep it simple. For example, we have discussed a WTO. Do you think what we have discussed in WTO, is it everything about WTO? Think of it. Do you think what we have discussed in WTO, that is everything about WTO? No. We are discussing about IMF. 70 plus years of history is there for IMF. I repeat, 70 plus years of history is there for IMF. Do you think you'll be able to read and understand everything under IMF? Not at all needed. That is where when you ask me the questions are how much to read, restrict yourself to what is there in the PPT. Simply read and remember the factual information, go forward. Do not waste your time. Now, lending by IMF, I've told you already, can be concessional as well as non-concessional. Lending can be concessional as well as non-concessional. Sir, what is this concessional? No rate of interest. No rate of interest. Whereas non-concessional, rate of interest is charged. Concessional loans are available only for poor countries. Non-concessional is available to all the countries. Is it okay? Concessional is available only for the poor countries. Non-concessional is available to all the countries. Sir, any type of loan products, any names here? Rapid credit facility, standby credit facility, extended credit facility, rapid financing instrument, standby arrangement, extended fund facility, etc., etc. For example, this is very often there in the newspaper. Extended fund facility. India borrowed under EFF, right? Very recently, many countries have borrowed under EFF from IMF. So again, please understand, lot of loan products are there. You do not worry. Don't read the details of all of these loan products, and not at all needed for UPSC. So understand, right? Furthermore, I've given certain right points here. Please have a look at it. Right? SBA means a standby arrangement. Right? Don't ask me, sir, what do you mean by SBA, etc., etc. Standby arrangement. Right? So SBA, extended fund facility, rapid financing instrument, right? SCF, RCF, ECF, all of these, right, are basically short forms. So couple of more points I've given. Please have a look at it. Right? A non-concessional, right? For what kind of assistance? A quick amount of assistance. For what duration? 3 years, 5 years. Generally, the loan duration will be between 3.5 to 5. It can be between 12 to 18 months. Can be extended by 2 more years. All the points I've given it. Please have a look at it. My recommendation to all of you, my recommendation, simply by heart it. Do not waste your time, simply by heart it. In fact, my only concern is UPSC can make it much more complicated by mixing and matching these types of instruments. They can simply mix and match and ask you which of the following are concessional, which of the following are non-concessional, etc., etc. These kind of questions can be asked by UPSC. Please be very careful. Done? Okay. Earlier you said India did not borrow nowadays from IMF. My dear, when I said India has taken the loan, did I say last year? Did I say this year? Right? That was in the past. Today we don't have loans. But in the past, what kind of instruments have been used by India to borrow? Those were the instruments. Okay. Done. So what are the points connecting India and IMF? India is the founding member of IMF. Right? In the group of countries which set up IMF, India is one of them. India currently has a voting right of 2.63%, right? A quota, voting right, etc. India has not taken any financial assistance from IMF since 1993, and we repaid the loans by 2000. So after that, no repayment is pending and no loans have been taken by India from IMF. Done? So these are certain points regarding India as well as IMF. Now questions are left out. Let me discuss the questions. After that, right, basically that will be the end of the discussion for you people. Okay, done. Any questions from your side? Any questions? Do let me know. Otherwise, we can start solving the questions. Sir, is IMF shares interest earned by them between member countries? Member countries are paid interest. There is an interest called as SDRI, special drawing right interest. IMF pays interest to member countries. Okay. What if borrowing country is unable to fulfill the conditions imposed by IMF? Generally, please understand, whenever the loans are given, only one amount is not given in single shot. Right? Read the newspapers. That's the reason you'll have to keep on reading newspapers. Imagine IMF will offer to provide, let's say, $2 billion to a member country. that $2 billion will not be given in a single shot, right? These are given in different tranches, right? After 3 months, they will give you so much amount of money. After 5 months, they will further release so much amount of money. That's the reason. Please check it and do let me know. Very recently was there this in the discussion. Pakistan is finding it very difficult to get the next round of funds from IMF. Was it there in the newspaper or not? Check it. If you want, check it. Pakistan is unable to meet the conditions of IMF, and that's the reason it is finding it very difficult to get the next round of funds released from IMF. So that is the argument. Okay, is 25% constant? Up to 25% you're allowed to borrow. Up to 25%. SDRs can only be converted into these 5 currencies only which are mentioned generally. Yes, why? Please understand. Will USA want to convert their SDRs into Indian rupee? Think of it. Right? Will USA want to convert that into Indian rupee? Or will India want to convert these SDRs into Indian rupee? What is the use? I need dollars. I need to pay in terms of dollars. So that's the reason I will convert that into dollar, yuan, yen, etc. International currencies. International currencies. That is where SDRs are converted into. Does IMF bailout mean borrower is defaulting? No. Right? IMF bailout simply means there are certain countries which are experiencing BOP crisis. And please understand, BOP crisis can be right devastating in nature or very minor in nature. I hope you understand. It all depends from one country to another country. What kind of a crisis is being faced by a member country? So some of the countries will have a very short-term crisis. Some of the countries will have a larger crisis. So from one country to another country, the crisis will vary. And that's the reason different type of loan products having different objectives are given by IMF. Okay, any limitations on number of loans of 25%? What do you mean by limitations here? If India has repaid all the loans, how India have STR now? My dear, STRs are reserve assets. Every member country of IMF is issued with STR. Issued, not loan. Issued with STR. Every member country has SDR units. Okay, done. Let's solve the questions. Okay, 52% have answered correctly. Recently, which one of the following currencies has been proposed to be added to the basket of IMF's STR? It is D. Again, some of you will ask, sir, why are you saying proposed? This question was asked couple of years ago before the introduction of renminbi. That's the reason the question is which has been proposed. Today, renminbi is the latest currency to be added into the basket of currencies to calculate STR. Next, let's solve it directly rather than starting a poll, etc. etc. Let's solve it directly. This was asked last year. Last year in the prelims. You can check it. This was asked last year in the prelims. 2022 preliminary examination. Rapid financing instrument, RFI. Rapid credit facility, RCF, are related to the provisions of lending by which of the following institutions? Right option is IMF. Straightforward question, no difficulty whatsoever. You can check it. It was asked last year. That's the reason I keep on telling you one point. This is my last class today. I'll repeat it again, reiterate it again. Do not try to become experts by reading everything in economy. That is not at all needed. Trust me on this. That is not at all needed. You can spend 1 year only to read economics. Even then, I will guarantee you that you are not an expert in economics. And even after reading 1 year on economics, I will guarantee there will be questions which are asked in preliminary examination, the answer for which you will not know. That is the reason. That's the reason. Do not basically, right, become an expert by reading too much in Indian economy. That is not needed. That is not at all needed. In fact, right, some of you will criticize me for this, but that's a fact. If 15 questions are asked and if you can correctly answer 10 questions, that is the best effort that you can make in economics. I'll repeat it. Out of 15 questions, if you can correctly answer 10 questions from Indian economy part, right, congrats, your preparation for Indian economy has been very, very good. Right? Why? You can read 100 books, but even then I will guarantee that UPSC will pick up one question in some remote part of universe and ask you as a part of economics. So you can't prepare for all those kind of questions. Some people will come out of the examination hall and say, yes, sir, I was able to solve all these 15 questions. But what they will not tell you is they have guessed a lot of them. They have guessed a lot of them. Right? So don't worry about it. Right? 15, if you can solve 10 correctly, that's a very good preparation as far as I'm concerned. So right option for this question will be option B, International Monetary Fund. Okay, one more question is there. With reference to International Monetary and Financial Committee, consider the following statements. Statement 1, IMFC discusses matters of concern affecting the global economy and will advise the International Monetary Fund on the direction of its work. Of course, yes. Right? That is basically the role of IMFC. The World Bank participates as an observer in the IMFC meetings. Yes, I told you, global organizations such as World Bank will participate in the Development Committee as well as right in the IMFC. And what is the role? They will keep on giving inputs. They'll keep on giving inputs so that advice can be provided. Second one is also correct. Right option for the question will be option C, both 1 and 2. Okay. Okay, right. Descriptive questions. The nature of economic growth in India in recent times is often described as jobless growth. Do you agree with this view? Give arguments in favor of your answer. Right. This is from employment chapter. Right. Did we basically did we experience jobless growth in the past 2 decades in India? Many experts argue yes. Many of the experts basically say yes, we have experienced a jobless growth situation in India. So the question is on that. So what is introduction? Define what is jobless growth. It is a situation wherein the economy experiences a higher GDP growth rate compared to which employment growth rate is very less or negligible. Second, come to the main body. Keep the introduction very short, very crisp. Come to the main body. Right? Why do we say that India is experiencing jobless growth phenomenon? Why? Why do we say that? The reason is very simple. In case of India, the investments are capital intensive. Employment elasticity has declined in the last 2 decades. Right? A lot of contribution comes from services sector. Service sector compared to manufacturing doesn't create too many jobs. Right? Etc. Etc. Right? We have discussed. There's a slide on this. Please write that. Come to the way forward. Come to the conclusion. Having said so, it's not that Government of India has not tried anything. It's not doing anything. Government of India in the recent times has implemented a lot of reforms to promote skilling initiatives, to promote, right, to promote employment generation, to promote industrialization, etc. You can give certain examples such as a Skill India initiative, right, such as a Make in India initiative, such as a Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. Right, so Government of India has been taking care of the supply side of the labor market as well as the demand side of the labor market so as to address the issue of jobless growth in India. Done? One question. Second question. What are the salient features of inclusive growth? Has India been experiencing such a growth process? Analyze and suggest measures for inclusive growth. And these two questions were asked for 250 words. But look at the difficulty of the questions. Difficulty in the sense, it is very difficult to put all the answers in 250 words. Right? In fact, here the question has three components. What are the features of inclusive growth? Has India been experiencing inclusive growth? And third one, suggest measures to promote inclusive growth. Right? So first, introduction, define what is inclusive growth. Use the definition of World Bank. If you ask me, use the definition of World Bank. Inclusive growth refers to the pace and pattern of the growth. Both are interlinked, must be addressed together. Now, what are the salient features? When do you say we are achieving inclusive growth? If incomes of the population is rising, poverty numbers are reducing, right? We are controlling the pollution, we are promoting regional development as well, etc., etc. We have discussed various features. Write those as the features of inclusive growth. Has India been experiencing inclusive growth? Right? You can quote the data of Multinational Poverty Index. Right? The Multinational Poverty Index says poverty has come down by this much percentage. Sanitation infrastructure has been developed or promoted. Industrialization, right? Industries are growing at this pace. India has set up a target of achieving net zero contributions, net zero emissions by 2070. India is promoting renewable energy sector, etc., etc. So we are promoting growth as well as a development using these initiatives. Having said so, understand this. Having said so, there are further requirements, right? There are further reforms which are required to address the issue of underemployment, to address the issue of skilling, to address the issue of industrialization, etc. Right? So you can give this as a way forward. Done? Right? Any difficulty? Full form of PMSBI? Pradhana Mantri Suraksha Bima Yojana. Pradhana Mantri Suraksha Bima Yojana. This is a question on FDI, which we have discussed. Further questions we have already covered under FDI, so there is no need. So finally, this is my last class. Before I start asking questions and answering your questions, right, I just want to give you a tip. Right, I told you in the first class, today is my last class. I'll tell you this. What should be your strategy? What should be a strategy? Point number one. Point number one, cover your static portion first. Cover your static portion first. How do you cover static portion? Use one reference book. Only one reference book. Please don't read 100 reference books. Not at all useful. Not at all useful for UPSC. Use only one reference book. Okay, sir, is this book good? Is this book good? My dear, there is no universal answer to that. There is no universal answer. Why? Some students will say, sir, I cannot read 1,000 pages. In that case, use a book with a smaller number of pages. Some books, some people will say, sir, I find this book language much easier to comprehend. Use that book. So use one reference book. Plus, use the PPTs that have been allocated to you, right? That have been given to you. That will cover static portion. Second, current affairs. Current affairs. If you ask me, more than static information, you should be worried about your current affairs. I'll repeat it again. Right? If you want to test my, right, let's say whether I'm correct or not, if you want to test me, check question papers. Please check question papers. Lot of questions, especially in the mains, equally true for prelims, will come from current affairs itself. So update your current affairs as much as possible. Cover current affairs. Sir, how many months? Preferable 12 to 15 months. What is preferable? 12 to 15 months prior to the examination date. That would be my recommendation. Third one, revision. Both static as well as a dynamic, that is current affairs, revision. Do not make a mistake of not revising sufficiently. Please revise. Now, if you ask me, sir, how many times should I revise? That is not an universal answer. Why? Don't you think from one person to another person, recollection capacity will change? I hope you understand. Recollection capacity will change. Somebody will be able to retain it for 1 month. Somebody is able to retain only for 1 week. So now, according to your capacity, you decide. Should you revise it twice? Should you revise it 3 times? Entirely left to you. But you will have to revise it. Fourth one, to make revision much more easily, what I would recommend is for every chapter, create mind maps. Right? Many of you are asking, sir, how do we remember it? My recommendation is prepare mind maps for every chapter. For example, I've given you 2 mind maps here. It's not visible clearly, I know that. But if you zoom in, that facility is available to you. If you zoom in, you can see, right? You can see basically these much more clearly. I've given you a mind map for 2 chapters. One is a national income. Second one is inflation. I've given you 2 mind maps. One is for inflation. Second one is for national income. My recommendation is create mind maps for other chapters as well. Right? Create mind maps for other chapters. It will take time only in the beginning. Trust me on this. It will take time only in the beginning. But after that, your revision will be very, very easier. Revision will be very easier. Fifth point, right? Attempt as many tests as possible. Attempt as many tests as possible. Okay. And the sixth point is please check previous year question papers. Please check previous year question papers. So these are the 6 points. This is my 6-point strategy that I would simply recommend to you. Now try it out. Some of you will simply say, sir, this is very comprehensive, very difficult to follow, etc. Try it out for 1 month or 2 months, then tell me whether this is working out for you or not. I hope you understand. Try it out for 1 or 2 months. Try it out. Then you tell me whether this strategy is working for you or not. Because whatever, right? Whatever could be the strategy followed by the toppers, it will be a summation of these 6 points only. Right? Previous year question papers, answer writing practice, right? As many test papers as possible, etc., etc. All this only they will also follow. Right? That's the reason I would recommend follow this 6-point strategy. Now, whether you want to follow this or not, it is entirely your prerogative. Sir, I will make my own plan. Right? I will not follow your plan. Agreed. I don't have any problem. Right? It's a democracy. You have a right to have your own own agenda or let's say own strategy for UPSC preparation. You can follow that. Okay, but ultimately, please understand. Ultimately, whether you follow this strategy, that strategy, or somebody else's strategy, it is immaterial as long as you get through UPSC. Right? What is the path that you're taking? That is immaterial. Right? What is the focus here? Focus should be, am I reaching the destination or not? So argument is focus on the destination. Whatever path you want to take, you decide on your right condition. Done? So this is what I wanted to discuss with you people. Now, if there are any questions further, please do let me know. Otherwise, we can stop the discussion today. Okay, today in the sense, Indian Economy GS Paper 3, that's it. Okay, any important websites to follow for economy? Not necessary. You don't have to run behind the websites. If you want to follow, you can follow. There is one website by IBEF, right? Indian Brand and Equity Foundation, which is run by Ministry of Commerce. Again, all that becomes very complicated for you, right? If you have time, is it a must to follow these websites? Not a must. If you have time, you can use it. There is a website by IBEF, right? Monthly report is published by RBI. Monthly report is published by Ministry of Finance, right? There is a PIB, right? A lot of documents are published in the PIB as well. Niti Aayog website is there. A lot of documents are published there. But again, please understand, this is very important. This point is important. What is the point? Is it not? It is not a must. It is not a must that you should refer all of this. Can you get through UPSC without going through all these websites? Of course, yes. Why? If you are reading newspapers correctly, if you are attending current affairs webinars, if you are revising correctly, it is a coverage of all of this. That is the reason. Okay, done. So, any other question? Any other question? Anybody else has any other doubt, any other question, please do let me know. Sir, but giving advice was the role of a development committee, not the IMFC. IMFC, please understand, right, is one of the committees. Right, Are Baba, that picture is very simple. IMFC is one of the committees along with the development committee, which is giving advice, to the International Monetary Fund, that is Board of Governors. Okay. Which chapter should we read from the book of economics? My dear, I've answered this question multiple times. Again, I'll repeat it. Read those chapters which we have covered in the classroom. Sir, anything else is required from this book? If something appears in the current affairs, try to search for static information in the book. Okay. Okay. Anything else? What is a freelancer? Freelancer is a kind of a worker who is going to work only for certain period of time. He is not a full-time worker, right? Only for certain activities the work is used. That is called as a freelancing work. Can we use a mind maps from PPTs or from book? Right? It is left to you. It is left to you. What I would recommend is, rather than focusing PPT or a book, etc., focus on static information that we have discussed. Add current affairs also in the mind map. Okay. PYQ should be done after clearing complete static portion. My recommendation is yes. Complete the portion first, then take up the PYQs. Which chapters are important for UPSC prelims? My dear, please remember this. My recommendation is, do not try to divide these chapters into only important for prelims as well as mains. Why? There is no guarantee. What if a concept that we have discussed in infrastructure, what if UPSC will ask you in prelims? Can they do that? Of course, yes, they can do that. You cannot simply tell UPSC you are not allowed to pick up infrastructure in prelims. They can do that, right? So you have sufficient time. It's not that exam is there after 1 month or 2 months. You have sufficient time, right? So why basically divide the chapters now? Because if you divide the chapters, I'm pretty sure some of you will simply say, I will not read this today. I will read it after prelims is over. Don't do that. It is not like, let's say, disaster management. Disaster management is mostly important for mains, right? So I hope you understand it. Do not divide it. You have sufficient time, read it. Or rather than disaster management, ethics. I would simply say, don't read ethics for prelims. Why? Questions on ethics will not come in prelims. So don't do that. You have sufficient time. Read all the chapters. Okay. Okay. Done then. So that's it from my side. Right. That's it from my side. Take care. Right. Read well. Do not complicate things. Please read well. Keep it simple. Do not try to remember everything for every topic in economics. That is not needed. That is not at all needed for UPSC exam. Right? So prepare well, update your current affairs, keep on revising. Right? All the best to you. Take care. Right? Bye. Have a great day.